Alright, I believe we should be live. But you never know until you know. So first things first. Okay, we've got our chat up on screen. That is, if there was any chat to be seen. Looks like we are live on YouTube. There's our notification. Nice. I would just have to see if anybody shows up today. Nico Bellic's here and says hello. Hello, Nico Bellic. Oh, that's mouse and keyboard. I don't play mouse and keyboard with this game. At least not typically. So I'm not going to talk about what we're doing too much yet. Gotta wait until a couple more people get here. But, I mean, I'll talk a little bit. Obviously, we're going to continue where we left off last time. Alright, we got Dr. Zowden here right away today. Dr. Zowden's in and he says hello. Hello, Dr. Zowden. Masali1 says hello, Nico. Hello, Masali. How you doing? We're obviously playing The Witcher 3, picking up where we left off 2 weeks ago. Dr. Zowden says got the notification this time. Well, that explains why you're here right at the beginning. Jason Tanner says sup. Hello, Jason Tanner. What's up with you? We get to enjoy one of the best changes that the Special Edition made. A fast travel post up in the top of Crow's Perch. Fantastic. Hypermapping says only in Eagle Rising. Oh, I think I have to sneeze. I'm feeling... I sneezed. It was probably pretty loud. Alrighty. So, last time we finished off the Baron storyline here in Velen. So, now we're going to make our way over to Novigrad. And since I've already crossed over this here bridge, we can actually fast travel to pretty close. So, I'm going to... how do I... Yeah, X. So, we'll travel here. I'll go to these billboards before going to the main mission, but that way I can, you know, pick up any of the side missions that are now available to me. Dr. Zowden says, need to stream on Thursday. KCD, we have a witch to burn. Do we have a witch to burn? Oh yeah, that's right, woman's lot. I don't know if I'll be able to. I've got a pretty packed schedule here coming up. What with Hogwarts Legacy coming out in a couple days here. I'm trying to get ready for that, so we'll have to see what happens. All I know for sure is that I'm streaming The Witcher 3 today. Hypermapping says, get well soon if you're sick. I'm not sick. I'm a little congested. It is super cold outside. I posted on my Discord server this morning, but it was negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit outside without wind chill. I don't know what it was with wind chill, but it was cold. My garage door got, like, that garage door opener wouldn't go because if it hesitates even a little bit to prevent it from breaking, it'll stop. And so I had to, when I was parking my car in the garage, when I got back this morning, it kept stopping in the same place, so I had to get out of the car, run into the garage, disconnect the power for the garage door so it wasn't, you know, locked to the carriage anymore, and then open it manually and get it back in and do that all. So it's chilly. What do we have? Estonian Gamer popped in and said, hello, hello, Estonian Gamer. We got the whole crew turning in already. Dr. Zowden says, blind stream of HWL then. Burn all the witches. HWL. What's HWL? Hogwarts Legacy? That could be what you're saying. Estonian Gamer says, did you plant explosive charges on the garage doors? No, I did not. That definitely would have been a more drastic approach to it. And unfortunately probably also would have led to... you know, a lot more problems in the future. So no, I just opened it manually and then, you know, reconnected the carriage after I had my car inside. It has to get pretty cold in Wisconsin for our garage doors not to work, because we... I mean, if you have a powered garage door, typically we try to aim for ones that don't get stuck in the cold. Blind stream of Hogwarts Legacy. It's possible that I could stream Hogwarts Legacy. We'll have to see what the game is like. Because there are certain game styles that I really will enjoy playing, but I won't enjoy streaming them. And so you never know what it's going to be until you know. But it's possible that I could go and do a stream onto it in it early. Only thing with that is that I typically when I get a new game like that, a big open world game, I play the crap out of it for like the first 3 to 7 days. So like I'll put as much time that I have possible into it. And the reason I do that is because I don't get games early. So I'm not one of those quote-unquote YouTubers that, you know, the developers are like, hey, we should give the game to this guy a month early so he can play it and review it and all that crap. So I typically get the game right when everyone else does. So if I want to release guides explaining how to play the game and, you know, knowing all the secrets of it early so that they're useful to everyone else when they're playing them, that means I have to play the game a lot when it comes out. So that's typically when I first get a game. Where am I? Okay, yeah, I did have to cross that bridge. I thought so, but there's like a ton of guards in the way. But yeah, so when I first get a game like that, the first couple days are nothing but playing that game. So looks like Estonian Gamer was able to become a cop in his GTA role-playing. Good. Maybe this time you won't get kicked for impersonating a police officer. Dr. Zowden says, every problem can be solved with the proper amount of high explosives. That's true, but also some problems will be made infinitely worse with the proper amount of high explosives. Now that Zeus is here, we have pretty much everyone. Only people we're still missing are, well, Dave Zilla, but he wasn't really here the last couple streams, now that I think of it. Bullet might be here, but he hasn't said anything yet.
Monster? What kind?
Big, bad, ugly, locked in the sewers. If you're interested, drop by the Garen estate. Ask for Olgierd von Everek. He's the one ordered.
Evil's soft first touches. Alright. I don't want to do that. A, that's not what I plan to do, and B, it's too high of a level for me. I just wanted to stop by and get all those little notification thingies. Dave has been AWOL. Ah, Bullet is here. See, I figured Bullet was here. He's just, you know, lurking. No, but, yeah, regarding Hogwarts Legacy, it's possible that I'll stream it. Like I said, I just won't know until I actually play the game. I also don't know if I'll like it. That's another problem with a lot of new games. Even ones that look good, like the gameplay trailers look good, and it looks like it's fun or whatever, I'll start playing it and I'll be like, I don't really like this game. You know? So we'll have to see. If I like it, and if I'm able to get it figured out early enough to have it make sense, then yes, there's a good chance I'll stream it pretty early. And see ads. D says, hey, you don't look like Kermit, my immersion is ruined. That's true. If you... Rostin Muggs, let's see what this guy wants.
Name's Muggs. Rostin Muggs. Need your help in a grave matter.
Definitely not a Estonian Gamer says, LOL, my first day on the force, I got shot on my first call. Damn, I was 49 years from retirement.
I was attacked. Smashed a bottle of the finest dwarven spirit on the bugger's skull. But the robbery was still a partial success.
Tell me what you want already, and be brief.
Thief ran off with my documents. Very important documents. I need you to get him back for me.
It'll cost you. I don't work for free.
Of course not.
That I know. Since the dawn of time, no witcher's lifted a finger without...
Definitely not a Estonian Gamer says that's a lie. What's a lie?
The coin in the soles of my boots.
Another officer got shot? I don't get it.
And it's yours.
Did I miss something?
Fine. See what I can do.
You got run over? Oh, you're just correcting yourself. I get you.
Might be my last chance.
Still, not that lucky. You know, first call you ever go on to just get mowed down by some... I don't know. I was going to say trigger happy, but that doesn't make sense. Steering wheel happy. Not pedestrian. I don't know. My words are failing me today.
You again? Want some more?
And now I'm out of that.
On God, I say, victory will be mine this time.
Dr. Zowden says, I'm going to laugh hard if Hogwarts Legacy is trash with the amount of hype around it has my bullshit meter pinging. Well, that's the thing. I mean, quite a few people have gotten their hands on it now and played it, like quite a few YouTubers and stuff. And they seem to really like it. You know, so I'm hoping that it's actually going to be good. Trigger happy motorist. Yeah, that works, D. Yeah, but, so yeah, with Hogwarts, I don't know. Like I said, the gameplay looks good. there is a lot of hype, but it's not really the developers trying to run the hype, which I think usually when that happens, it's something to be worried about. Because they've been pretty low-key about it, you know? It's mostly just all of the people watching, like, scrounging up details from the gameplay reveals and all sorts of stuff like that. That's how the hype is all being driven. It's not actually coming from the devs, and that's usually when my bullshit meter goes off. Because with this one, they haven't been saying that much about it. So I don't know. I'm still hoping it'll be good. What do we got? Definitely not a stunning gamer says, then there was a terrorist attack / riot at the police department and I got shot in the shoulder 5 times by a Avtomat Kalishkov 47. You write that differently than I normally pronounce it. Hypermapping says, you guys really shouldn't underestimate Sturgia because of this. Shows old man twerking on motorcycle. That's a good point. You shouldn't underestimate Sturgia because of that. Dr. Zouden says, yeah, but they are paid shills. I'll trust my smaller creators like you. Well, and that's, like I said, that's a problem. Because over time, you get, you know, YouTubers that, like I said, the developers will seek them out and give them the game early. And, you know, maybe they're paying them for it, you don't know. But sometimes it comes off as disingenuous. So, I don't get paid to shill because every time that developers reach out to me with some sort of an offer, not every time, because a couple times the stuff that they've reached out with has been, you know, legitimately decent stuff. But a lot of times they'll reach out and they'll give me it for free, or they'll pay me some money to, like, promote something, and I don't lie about it, though, you know? If something sucks, I'm like, yeah, this game sucks. It's bad, it's boring, the grind is ridiculous, it's laggy, it's janky, the graphics look like they're 20 years old, you know? That's typically been my experience, and so, like, every time I'll get some sort of, like, a sponsorship deal like that, and then I'll trash the game. It's like another year before another company reaches out to me for a sponsorship. They don't typically like my reviews. But, like I said, I've made it by this far without taking a Raid Shadow Legends sponsor. You know, I figure I could probably keep going. Stunning Gamer says, also I was in the 1080 and I got shot in the stomach. Nice. Here. You guys, see? We get to see some witches burn. Well, not witches maybe, but people. Clown for Chad? I'm not sure if I understand what you typed in there, hypermapping. Dr. Zouden says, do a Dead Space remake stream. I actually haven't played it. I don't even have it. I've seen a lot of people talking about it. It'd be really blind for me because I didn't play Dead Space. So it would be like a brand new game for me.
Special pie for you, freak. Nice, slow burning. You'll beg for mercy in all the voices known to you. And the others of your species. I wanted only to live like you. Help me, kind folk, please.
You got kidnapped, Stunning Gamer? That doesn't seem like a very slow-burning fire. Looks like he's been mostly cooked already. You'd think at this part Geralt would be like, what the hell are you guys doing? And would just start cutting these guys up, especially Minga. But, yeah, not so much. Hypermapping says, basically the use of terms because and its synonym for. Aight. Again, I'll have to take your word for it.
You've seen the new waitresses.
Ooh, look at all those missions. High stakes, it's a Gwent tournament. Yeah, baby. Love a good Gwent tournament. But for now, we're looking for Triss. Ooh, I should go talk to this guy first. Vivaldi. Because I should be able to trade in my Florins and Orins.
Well, well, look who's here. The White Wolf himself in my humble establishment.
Lexi1397 says, heyo, I'll be home soon. Currently got the music loud. I'll be back. Alright. Ah, see, we can already play Gwent with him.
How's business?
Stony Gamer says, I responded to a 1099 and was whacked on the head 2 times in a row. You don't sound like you're a very good cop there, Stony Gamer. Seems like basically every time you do anything, you either get killed or at least assaulted.
Provided you've the know-how. Before Nilfgaard had even crossed the pond.
Hypermapping. Nico Bellic 0.0001 after saying hello. He usually just lurks. Every once in a while you'll see him say something, but whenever I get Nico Bellic on the stream, it's normally from the background. Dr. Zowden says, burning witches, yes, religious persecution. Very nice, high five. 10 out of 10 favorite gaming moments of 2023. Need a loan.
Just like
Lady Missa.
I'm gonna pay back my loan right away.
want to pay
It's the
back.
fastest way to lose 30 crowns. Now we'll convert some currency.
How can I be
We have, ooh, 3,452 more coins. Well, let's play Gwent. Let's see if we can beat Vimy.
Gwent, don't you?
Oh, sure. 'Cause I'm a
Definitely not a Stoning Gamer says, then a fellow officer gave him the death penalty. Checks out. Hypermapping says, Nico Ballin supports Leanna, so good thing he doesn't haunt the stream.
So you play
Lots
or
of people
not?
support Leanna hypermapping, just not you. Alright,
So play me.
let's see if we can defeat Vivaldi. The bankerest banker that ever banked. Alright, there we got to throw in Yennefer, so now we get to remove... Okay, so we've got 23. Let's see if we can get rid of a... What is she, 7? We can get rid of Sela de Transville. Yeah, we'll get rid of her. That should leave us pretty well balanced. Ooh, he's Scoia'tael. Yikes, let's get rid of 2 of those. Nothing like a waste to spot like that. Alright, so remember what we do here. We play our Gontro Dims first. Then there was a hostage situation at a gas station and it exploded. Play against my archers, eh? But it was at my car smoking and thus didn't die. Fair enough, I assume. Ooh, he's gonna summon. Now we're gonna play our blue stripes. They'll pair off each other. It's too bad he didn't immediately use him against me, because if I could get what's his name, big fat guy whose name I can't remember. If I could get him back into my thing, I'd be able to play him again next time with my Yennefer card. But for now, 19th, that'll work. Look at that, woohoo! We win, and we have the same amount of cards. We draw one. What do we draw? Ah, it's just a decoy. Well, we'll start with the Crinford Reavers. So I've witnessed 2 cases of domestic terrorism. Yeah, but it's Grand Theft Auto. Basically everything in Grand Theft Auto would be considered domestic terrorism. At least, you know, by most accounts. Well, that decides where I'm going to put my commander's horn. I'm going to put it right there. Ah, he's copying me. Using all the same strategies. Alright, let's pop down this and see if he's got a Scorch card that he's waiting to use. I honestly thought he was going to Scorch me. Well, let's try to avoid the Scorch on 2 cards at once. We'll pop in... Now we'll pop in Siegfried. Aha! There we go! Now we'll be able to use our spy card. Hate to give him 8 points, but you know, it could draw me 2 more spy cards. 10-4. 10-4, good buddy. That's what I would say if and I were a cop. Well, if I use this, I'll be able to draw out another Blue Stripes commando. I feel like the scores are close enough that I should just keep going. See what he does. Yeah, look at that. We're gonna win now. Suck on that. There we go. Kumalala Savesta 3. I'll take your word for it.
The card's yours.
Tried your best.
There's my...
Look at that. Already won our first game of high stakes Gwent, now that we made it to the big city. Now we can finally move on to talking to Triss.
Sod off. We're looting here.
Anyone else here planning on playing Hogwarts Legacy?
Sorcerers who lived here.
And we're supposed to believe that.
Yeah.
Because between that and Starfield, Dr. Zedden says, still playing Bannerlord on PS4, playing as Britannia with 50 Vlandia Banner Knights and 50 Britannia Champion Archers. I think the meme of F3 plus F4 to win is in effect. Will join Vlandia. Yeah, no, I mean, if you're doing that, you've got some of the best heavy cavalry in the game and some of the best archers in the game. That's a combination that's really hard to beat because the Flying Champions are ridiculously good on the open field and behind a siege, obviously. But if you pair that with... Heavy infantry works if you could have a good shield formation, depending on the landscape. But heavy cavalry, especially if you're using them in sweeping charges that you control, it makes it a basically unbeatable combo.
They say you've got to get there through the
Hypermapping says Nico Bellic, but we act like his name is Nico Ballin for 1 week. Dr. Zedden says, you going to marry Triss or Yen? Here's the thing, as someone who is married in real life and has been in relationships with people like, well, lots of different people, but I've been in a relationship with a Yen, and I would not wish that upon my worst enemy, so not Yen. Obviously, out of those two choices, in The Witcher 3, Triss is the choice. Now, people don't like that because Triss, you know, did things that make you not like her in the previous games, and she's not a particularly likable character in the books. But she is a likable character in The Witcher 3. So when you're talking about it, because I made a video about this a while back on the channel, in The Witcher 3, who should you go for, Triss or Yen? And I just lay down the differences in their personalities and the differences in their relationship with Geralt. And a lot of people were like, yeah, but this thing that she did in the books, or this thing that she did in The Witcher 2, I'm like, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about The Witcher 3. She's like an entirely different character, you know? So it's an easy choice there. But I think out of the non-obvious choices, Shani would probably be a real good spouse for Geralt as long as she could get over her, I want to be a battle medic, you know, type of thing.
Small animals.
Hypermapping says no, he's going to marry Quandale Dingle. I don't know if I'm going to marry Quandale Dingle. Stunning Gamer says, sadly, I ain't a real cop. I'm only a public officer, which means I can't basically do anything. Yeah, but maybe I'll get promoted. Hypermapping says, where Dave? Dave is absent, and he was absent from last week's stream too. I think he showed up, sent one message, and then that was all that I saw from him the whole stream. So who knows? Maybe he has fallen out of love with the live streams on this channel.
I haven't done
I don't know.
anything wrong.
But you will. Sooner or later, your sort always causes trouble.
So nobody here is planning on playing Hogwarts Legacy? I mean, I only have, what, 10 people watching the stream, so it's not crazy to think that none of you would. But it's probably going to be one of, if not the biggest gaming releases of 2023. So, like, the only other competition that I have for that game for something that I'm interested in that's currently announced for 2023 would be Starfield. But, you know, like I've said before, my interest on that one isn't crazy high. But because it's a Bethesda game, I have to assume modding is going to be a big deal for Starfield. And if you think about it, the system that they're implementing could make it so we could have like a Stargate game or something like that that could be very well implemented. And I think that would be really cool. Because, you know, up till current day, we don't have any Stargate video games, and it's like one of the coolest IPs ever made, and definitely my favorite sci-fi IP ever. So it'd be really cool if we got some conversion mods or anything like that for Starfield so that we could finally play an open world Stargate RPG.
Airbrush.
Hypermapping says, look, this thing is very serious. Dr. Zedden says, I'll let you step on that landmine first. If you say it's good, I'll look into it. I mean, and I will. My plan, basically, because I was able to pre-order the Digital Deluxe, so I'll have it on the 7th, is when I'll start playing Hogwarts. And so by the 10th, the regular release date for, you know, the regular game, I should be able to have a first impressions video out, which should be, you know, a couple days worth of gameplay, because hopefully by that point I'll have, as horrible as it sounds to put yourself through this, you know, 30 to 40 hours of gameplay into it. And so by that point, hopefully I'll be able to supply you with the information you need to know about the game. I mean, it would come down to just a few things, in my opinion, like most games do, is just area of interest. Now, obviously, it's a game that anybody who calls themselves like a Harry Potter fan, yeah, this is probably going to be a game for you. But for just the regular gaming crowd, you know, not Harry Potter nerds, it looks like a pretty fun open world action adventure with some light RPG elements in it, and you know, that's the type of game that I play a lot on my channel. I mean, I like actual RPGs the best, but if you think about it, The Witcher 3, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Kingdom Come Deliverance are all just action RPGs. They're not actually RPGs. So, if it's made with any sort of quality at all, it should be an experience like those ones for me. Now, mind you, obviously, I'd prefer a game where you fight with swords as opposed to magic, but, you know, is what it is. Beggars can't be choosers, you know? Stony Gamer says, Nico, what is the best cop car? A Ford Explorer, Ford Crown Vic, or a Dodge Charger? If we're just talking real life, because I can't comment on your game that you're playing, but in real life, most of the cops I've ever talked to, first of all, it's not an Explorer, it's a unique model. It looks a lot like an Explorer, but it's not. It's actually a Ford Interceptor. It's specifically made for being a cop car. Most of the cops that I know and have asked about that prefer that one the best, because it's, you know, you don't actually get into high-speed chases as a police officer all that often. But for what extent you do need to go quickly, the Police Interceptor can go perfectly quick. What the hell is going on? Why is my view so locked up? That was weird. That was strange. But the nice thing about the SUV platform for a cop car is that you just have a lot more room on the inside, so you can actually fit yourself in there, you know, with full gear and tactical vest and all that sort of stuff. You know, so I would say that one is just all around the best. The worst one, and it's why pretty much every department has abandoned it, is definitely the Dodge Charger. It makes a really bad cop car. It gets the worst fuel mileage out of all of them. Traction control on it is absolutely terrible. And despite the fact that it's a very large car and takes up a lot of space, the interior room of it is really, really bad. So, the Crown Vic obviously stayed the standard cop car for most departments for an incredibly long amount of time. Probably mostly because it came with that big V8 in it, so it was just a real powerful engine in an extremely durable body, you know. So that would be, in my opinion, why the Crown Vic was so dominant for as long as it was. Not to mention it was also a pretty affordable car. I had a buddy who had a Crown Vic, and I raced him more than once in it. And that, like I said, that big V8 in there, that thing was just fast. It was a powerful vehicle.
Why the hell are you following me?
Why not?
Just happen to be going where you're going.
And how the bloody hell do you know where I'm going?
Hypermapping says, in one of the
Well, you're not as clever as you think.
Bannerlord streams by Strat Gaming, one of the Bannerlord channels, Flessin19, was a mod. Then NPC Flessin timed out me and told me that Lyanna invaded Sturgia. Very NPC move, unexpected. Redneck Zeus says, Hogwarts Legacy looks fun. I want to play it, but probably won't. Why not? Just, financial reasons, or time reasons, or not that big into Harry Potter?
Come on, we can figure
Stony
something
Gamer
out.
says, I use the Vic because you know I'm a cop, and I want to make sure that those who can't read know I'm a cop. Dr. Zowden says, I want the ability to craft spells like in Morrowind and commit crimes against humanity in Hogwarts Legacy. I want it to look like a fight from Dragon Ball Z? I assume that's what DBZ means. Redneck Zeus says, been seeing a lot of police Chevy Silverados around here recently. Yeah, it depends on how rural the area you live in is. Because, we've got some, sheriff's departments around here in Wisconsin that use a lot of pickup trucks. So, I mean, around here it's typically Fords. They're usually Ford F-150s. But, like, the Wisconsin DNR uses, Duramax diesels. Or at least they did for a good long time, so... Yeah, I've seen quite a few pickup trucks being used in law enforcement. In my opinion, it's usually a good sign that the department is making more money than they need to. Stunning Gamer says, I have only these 3 options for my cars. Yeah, no, out of those options, like I said, the Interceptor SUV would be my personal choice in real life. But as far as the game is concerned, or certain situations in real life, I could easily see the Crown Vic being the go-to choice there. I think it's, like I said, I think it's a significantly better car than a Dodge Charger ever was for a cop car.
Poking around where I probably shouldn't be, I know. I gotta find the Putrid Grove.
That's a secret place for secret folk doing secret business. And who's to say you're any good at keeping a secret?
Me. You have my word.
A freak's bilgy gas, not more. How stupid do you think I am?
On a scale of 1 to 10, at least an 8.
Grab the horse, son.
Yeah, that proves it.
Smash the bugger.
That's my favorite thing to do when you,
Easy. Jumpy, are we?
my favorite thing to do when you start a fight in The Witcher 3, and it starts as a fist fight, immediately pull out your steel sword and just start slashing them. It's the best way to immediately show that you are serious.
In Lysol's. Down an alley. Man, guarding the gate. Gotta give him the password.
What is the password?
Old sows. Farrowed piglets.
See? Just gotta make the effort.
See, all we had to do was slice one of them open with a sword. And now we get to go into the Putrid Grove. And I can't imagine what I would rather do than spend my time in a place called the Putrid Grove. I don't know about you guys, but it just sounds utterly charming to me. Zeus, do you have a reason for why you're probably not going to play Hogwarts Legacy? I'm just curious. It's kind of the only thing on my mind right now because it's coming up here and I'm getting myself into the headspace for it. Because like I said, if I want to try making videos for it on YouTube, I'm going to have to play it a lot in the first couple days of having it. So I'm priming myself for it. Estonian Gamer says, in Estonia, the cop SUV is a Volkswagen something. The police normal car is the Skoda Octavia. The police van is a Volkswagen Transporter 4. Lexi1397 is back, and she is reminding everyone not to forget to like the stream. She's correct. If you haven't already, check to make sure that that like button is working. Ooh, also, just a special offer for those watching my stream. I've got some free game codes that I could give away if anyone's interested. I'm already forgetting what the game was called. Let me check. Dang, I can't remember. Hypermapping says every mod is an NPC except for Lexi1397 and Mr. MC. It depends. Lexi1397 in quotes says, "Hey there, handsome." LOL. I'm not sure how to take that. Stunning Gamer says, "Did you know that most of the European Fords are made in Germany?" No, I didn't know that offhand, but I'll take your word for it. Bet you this guy has Gwent cards to sell.
What are you offering?
Stoning Gamer says, "Also, yes, please me, I am poor Indian man." Thought you were Estonian. I don't want to buy 2 torches. So this guy does not have Gwent cards, which is lame, but we can play him and get our Gwent card that way.
Wouldn't mind a few rounds of cards.
Dr. Zodin says, "Speaking of police, how about them guys in Tennessee? Looked like a high school brawl with nightsticks." Yeah, the video is pretty brutal, if I'm being honest. You know, I would hate to be the PR department for that police department, because I can't imagine it's going to be easy for them to explain how that was somehow justified. So, that'll be rough. On the bright side, we can get rid of Siegfried of Danessel, and we can swap in Vesemir. Now our northern deck is that much stronger. Hypermapping says, "The fact that this 9-person stream has a better chat and community than most 500 plus, 50,000 plus streams." Well, I'm glad that you enjoy the community. I wouldn't tout my nose at a 500, 1,000, or 50,000 person stream. That would certainly be pretty cool. But yeah, I think we've got a pretty fun community here. We're a small group, but I think that helps us communicate better. Estonian Gamer says, I'm Estonian, but you know, I need the game, so yeah. Lexi1397 says, well, hypermapping, that is because we here on Dare to Game are the best. That is just simply true. Yeah, I wish I could remember. It was Guild something. I can't remember, but it was an MMO type game. I got 3 free keys to give away for it. It's not the one I made the video about the other day. Zeus says, money. I don't like paying for something I'm not 100% certain I'll get my money's worth out of. Well, and like I said, that's why I would just recommend 26. I want to win this first round because he passed on it nice and early. 16. Boop. That's why, like I said, I would just wait because you can do all sorts of stuff. You can just wait until we have. Yay! I'm glad I didn't focus too much on melee because most monsters go real heavy into the melee. So Biting Frost is really good against monster decks. But anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, just wait with Hogwarts Legacy because A, you'll be able to see enough reviews that will hopefully illuminate you onto whether or not you would actually want to play the game, and B, there's a really good chance that you'll actually at some point get some sort of a decent sale going on. And that makes all the difference. Ew. That's not ideal. I guess we're gonna go heavy on the archery. What do I... Oh yeah, I was gonna say just melee. That's okay. I should still be able to outlast him. Stunning Gamer says, too many people in the chat makes chatting horrible. I mean, I like having enough people so that I can actually have an active conversation going on. So, it's hard for me to really give it, you know, too hard in one direction. As far as opinions are concerned for that. But, you know, being someone who makes at least a good chunk of my living off of my online activities, like I said, I wouldn't turn down a 50,000 person stream. Even if it does turn it into slightly less of a personal situation, it makes it easier to make money off of it. 28. Now I'm at 30. What's he got? Okay, so if I double that... 4... Well, time to go for broke, because I can't win if I don't do this. Dang! Crap. Dr. Zadin says, speaking of food, did you eat breakfast? Yes, I quickly rifled down a bowl of cereal. And, that should keep me going just fine. Renexu says, I usually just watch YouTubers play the game, and by the time I get around to playing it myself, I'm already bored of the game. See, that's why I don't like watching YouTubers play games. Is because, yeah, man, I'm really bummed out about this. Well, let's see what happens. Yeah. Dang, I lost that one. How embarrassing. I guess I'll just have to pass. I'll remember that guy, and I'll come back.
Geralt of Rivia in the flesh.
You'll be there soon. On one hand, is my job as a cop. Lexi says, fire, cucumber, water, 100, 3 hearts. Which, you know, I agree with that. On the other hand, is this stream. The stream has been awkward, but on the higher level, for one of the headmen of the stream has been lurking around. Dr. Zadin says, was your Rumble rant the reason Dave went AWOL? I don't know. Could be. Like I said, I just assume he's busy. You know? But I like to assume the best. Crazy D says, fire, pickle, smiling, laughy face. Hypermapping says, AO. Eyebrow raised, camera, playing card. Renixu says, I ate scrambled egg and chorizo breakfast tacos with a side of bacon. That sounds good.
Me and my men will manage to...
One time, I made breakfast quesadillas for my family. And I can't remember if we did breakfast sausage fried up or if I did a bunch of, like, bacon and cut that up into small pieces and put it in there. But, you know, it was just a quesadilla. I had, you know, the tortilla in there, scrambled eggs into it, the meat, cheese, And then I just grilled that up, and then I think served it with sour cream and salsa. I loved it. I think my wife liked it. My kids did not like it. They were, like, refusing to eat it. And, like, you know, I do the old parent thing where I force them to take one bite. The problem with my kids is they're stubborn, right? I know, which is crazy. Not you know, most children aren't. But, I'll force them to take a bite, and they won't admit that day that they like it. No matter what. It doesn't matter if they do like it, they'll be like, ew, it's gross, after I force them to take a bite, and then they won't eat anymore. But then later they'll be like, no, I like that, because they can admit a week later that they like the thing, they just won't admit the day you're trying to make them eat it that they like it, so. I haven't made it ever since, because I was like, if I'm going to make breakfast, and I know that my kids are going to fight me about eating it, I'm not going to make something that takes me 10 times the amount of time. So I'll just make eggs, bacon, and toast, and I'll be like, you're not leaving the table until you eat it, period. That way I didn't waste my whole morning making a breakfast that they're going to complain about. Definitely not a Stony Gamer says, Nico, make me choose. I don't remember what I'm supposed to... Oh, you have to choose between watching this stream and being a cop? Whichever one makes you happier.
And his witch hunters took the reins. The semblance.
Lexi says, a Stony Gamer, I read that as on one hand job as a cop. Only one hand job as a cop so far.
One day,
Crazy the Entertainment says, I eat peanut butter and bread.
Will be truly free.
As long as you're eating a peanut butter that's high in protein and low in sugar, that's not terrible.
Superstition, farting around about the hallowed essence of the eternal fire.
Dr. Zadin says, my breakfast was 2 glasses of whiskey and 3 cigarettes. Not a very nutritious breakfast, if I'm being honest. I wonder if I'd get banned on YouTube or, like, demonetized or whatever if I smoked a pipe on stream. Is that not allowed? I wonder if that would violate, like, community guidelines. Because every once in a while I will light up a pipe and have a good pipe like that. And even less common, I'll smoke cigars. My wife doesn't like the smell of cigars, so I don't typically smoke them anymore. But I like them. Good ones, at least.
I'm actually glad someone like you's found his way.
Hypermapping says, I remember the moment when I once argued with Nico because of Landia and Liana. Those were the days, weren't they, Hypermapping? Dr. Zedden says, wonder where they got that from, Dad. I'm actually not that stubborn of a person. And, like, I was much more stubborn as a child, but as I aged and mellowed out, I'm not nearly as stubborn as I used to be. My wife, however, is incredibly stubborn. So,
Geralt, I have a lot of things
that's where I would say they got it from.
I'll be glad to tell
Stunning Gamer says, okay, I'm going to be a cop. Like I said, whatever makes you happier is what I recommend. I never want anyone to watch my streams out of a sense of, I guess, loyalty. You should really only watch it if you're enjoying it, because if you're not enjoying it, and then I'm, like, having to limp through a stream because people don't like it, then that makes it less fun for me, too. You know? Whereas if I get to a point where nobody's watching the streams anymore, I'll be like, oh, I just won't stream. You know? Dr. Zedden says, nope, you're good on that. Renexu says, I think smoking a pipe or cigar is fine on YouTube. I've never tried it, so I don't know. I've already run into the vast emptiness of my my drink. Now I have what's left of my Diet Pepis.
I take it you're in Novigrad on important business.
Important doesn't do it justice. I'm looking for someone.
Dr. Zedden says, Scotch and smoke rings are still a very real stream from Oxhorn. I haven't watched an Oxhorn video for a long time. Basically, I don't know, probably like 2015 was probably the last time I watched an Oxhorn video. But I do remember that he did that.
Was hoping you'd heard something.
Stunning Gamer says, you know, Nico, you can tell YouTube these 3 words. Suck it up. You say that, but then if they take all my money away, then I wouldn't do YouTube anymore. I would switch over entirely to, like, a different site. Actually, I don't know if that's true, because I did YouTube for a long time before I started making money off it. So I can't say for sure that I would quit altogether. I probably wouldn't. I would probably keep making content. But then I would probably have to find a way to make other money off of it. Otherwise, I'd have to cut way back on the amount and frequency of content I make. So I don't know. Every once in a while, I wake up and I'm like, I wish I would just get banned off YouTube. I wish they would just shut me down, and it would force me to do something else. And then other days I'm like, why am I saying that? I like doing YouTube.
Get to the point, Klug. No time today for one of your long stories.
Or live with it. LMAO, house person, more drinks. Yes, house person, more drinks. The one that I typically drink in my giant mug. If we have any. I don't know if the house person went to the store and bought more. So, hard to say.
When asked why,
Oi, house
I
person.
contained a dead cat. You sure?
More drinks.
But they believed me.
I need that package, Klug. I've got a contract.
It must
Klug.
be on the canal bed.
I love his name,
It's
Klug.
heavy enough to sink.
I think all of you guys in the stream, if you don't have kids already, your firstborn kid should be named Klug, whether it's male or female.
I can do that.
Because I can't think of anything better or more beautiful of a name than Klug.
Second bridge in from the harbour.
I didn't expect such devotion.
Damn right, Triss.
Freshen up anyway. Let's go.
Gonna be devoted to something, it better be that.
Hear that? They've come for us.
Triss is fine, like wine in the summertime. Lexi1397 says, I feel like anything I would do as a job, I would eventually hate it, lol. Dr. Zadin says, it's like a bum waiter. Bum waiter? I'm confused if you mean like a bad waiter or a dumb waiter, those things in your house that you lift things up through.
Lucky this time, but you'd best leave via the sewers.
Starting Gamer says, okay, I'm gonna mute the stream and go do cop things. Alright, Starting Gamer. Be sure to harass and abuse, and never to protect and serve. Brendixu says, all my sons will have first names that start with the letter W. Ooh, that's a challenge. Let me think of some W names. Walter? Wallace? Wilfred? William? Did I say William? Wiggum? Walter? Did I say that already? Wombat? Wario?
There's a draft. Should be enough.
Willis? I don't know if I said that already. William? Did I say that? Also Will? Waldo?
Free city of Novigrad.
Wanker?
Actually used to mean something.
The reason so many mages came here after the massacre at Loch Ness. Thought they'd be safe from Radovid's reapers. Instead, they jumped out of the
I'm having troubles. Coming up with more W names. Dr. Zouden says I'd prefer Gideon for my son's name when he's born. Gideon's a cool name. I could get on board with that. It's not as good as whatever I said before, Krug or whatever the name was. Or Klug. Klug. Wolcott? Yeah, Wolcott's a name. Wormy?
Seems to be suffering from a persecution complex too.
Wisteria? I believe that's a type of flower. But, yeah, no, Gideon's a cool name. That's not bad.
Maybe some other.
But my strategy, so...
Water's thick with pungent
I don't think it's ever gonna hurt a kid to go with a super old name. What I think the names that are the worst are you're seeing just a ton of them right now, all over the place. So, my kids got their, like, school picture things, you know? And, they get the one for their whole class. So it'll have all of their classmates in it as well. And so I'm reading through their names, and almost all of the names are these crappy, modern, new age, you know, not actual names. And there's even some that I didn't used to dislike, but now I really dislike them. Names like Hunter and stuff like that. I get why a lot of people name their kids that way. They're like, oh, because I like the outdoors and it's a cool name, and I wish I had a cool name when I was a kid. But I'm like, yeah, but... And, like, that's the least offensive example. Ooh, I gotta sneeze again. That's the least offensive example I've got, you know? Or you get people who like Walker or something like that.
Or did you get wet?
Like I said, just...
Nothing like a
I prefer traditional names. So,
Found a few
Lexi
fish.
says, I like Lawrence. Redneck Zeus says, Winnipeg. Winnipeg is that's the best name, Redneck Zeus. I hope you name your kid Winnipeg.
Oh, you're a doll.
They'll be really popular in Canada. Estonian Gamer says, Wingen.
Seem to be in your element.
But yeah, so like Lex1397 said Lawrence. Yeah, Lawrence is a super traditional name. Now, Gideon isn't a traditional name, but it is a super old name. So I could see Gideon being pretty cool.
Good. That should stop people from
Even all your basic names, you know, people are like, ugh, that's such a basic name. Yeah, but it's basic because it's timeless, you know, and you can use it to name them after any person that you admire, whether they're historical or whatever. You know, George, James, Samuel,
Expect you to bring company.
Thomas, Matthew, you know. There's all sorts of, you know, names that people would probably consider super common, but they're just genuinely good names.
Expect you resolve things twice as fast.
Definitely not a Stunning Gamer says heavy Walking Dead flashbacks.
But I'd prefer you
Walking
not to
Dead
tarry and
flashbacks.
begin.
For which name?
Trace.
You talking Wingen? I don't remember someone named
Agreed
Wingen in,
price.
in
We
Walking
settled on
Dead.
a full coin purse.
Brandon and Co. is a serious outfit. We've the largest granary in all Novigrad.
All right then. Let's get to work.
We need to place these crystals around the granary, near anything.
Oh, Walker.
trapped.
I get you. When I said Walker, I was picturing like Walker, Texas Ranger.
I'll cover half the space. You take the other half. Look for evidence of rat activity.
You mean like all the rats?
Thing is, I know what evidence of manticore activity looks like, but rodents.
Geralt, we'd both rather be someone.
Dr. Zowden said, "Where are the Toms and Bills, the Als? I bet the boys with the above names would beat the shit out of all the Hunters and Skylers."
I'll cast a spell
Right?
on rats.
Exactly. Just,
Do that without sprinkling
or
incense.
like, the worst one is like all of the newer, I don't know if you'd call them white girl names or whatever. Things like, Rayland and like Meglin and you know, there's a whole bunch of these just made up names that are close. They're close to a real name that exists, but they're slightly off because they're like, yeah, but I want them to be unique or something like that, you know? Yeah, exactly. All the Toms, Bills, and Als are going to beat up all the Hunters and Skylers. Well, and then you have, like, Gage.
Interesting method.
I've never liked that as a name
Rats.
at all. I think it's a
Once I
terrible
hit one
name.
with a fork in complete darkness,
Keegan.
trying to show off
You
my
know,
nature's senses.
names like that. I just don't
Masterful
like
throw,
them.
really.
And of course, if anybody watching the stream has these names, I'm not personally attacking you. I just, the names,
what do you
they get me.
Rat catcher.
Uh,
It's a long way to fall from being advisor to
now that I'm talking about it, I'm having trouble thinking about it. But like I said, when I was going through my kids' classes, I was looking at the names, I was like 4 of them are normal names. And the rest are all just these made-up, stupid, new age nonsense
Man once who
names.
reacted to everything,
It
especially
drives me nuts.
adversity, by mocking it.
Healthy attitude. He must have lived long.
Came a day he lost both his legs in battle. He shrugged, said it was better that way. He could never feel pain in them again.
I understand him perfectly.
Lexi1397 called me
Maybe he was
Noko.
lying to himself.
I think he just didn't have much of a choice.
Lexi1397 said, "Strong names for boys are the best in my opinion." Well, that's what I'm saying. You should name them something strong.
There's really nowhere to run.
You know,
Sometimes you have
obviously, most of the people that I personally know
your friend
pick
might
their
have
names
well
biblically.
lost legs,
You know,
but it's not
so
like by grief
if it exists in the Bible, it's a good name, basically. And I'm like, sweet, let's start naming them some of the wacky names from the Old Testament.
How do you know I found her?
You didn't answer
What'd you
my
name your
question.
kid? Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar.
Don't know yet.
Now I want a kid named Nebuchadnezzar.
Asking about anything specific.
Never mind.
Rennick Zeus says lots of white kids nowadays with black names like Kyrie or Shaniqua. Yeah, and that's another thing. It's just people making up names to fit the type of identity that they're going for. And I don't like that. Just pick a regular name. There are lots of regular names out there. Thousands of them, you know? And like I said, if you can tie them to something more meaningful than, oh, it's a name that I saw on a TV show once and I really liked it. You know, stuff like that. I mean, and I shouldn't criticize too much with that mentality because my dad desperately wanted to name one of my sisters after a character from a John Wayne movie. And it's one of my favorite John Wayne movies, Rio Lobo. There's a character in there named Shasta Delane. And my dad desperately wanted to name one of my sisters Shasta, but my mom was like, that is a terrible name. And to be fair, my mom was right. As much as I love that movie, and I even really enjoy the character from that movie, Shasta Delane's a good character, that's such a terrible name, though. Isn't Shasta a soda? You know? Yeah, there are certain names that I just don't, I don't go for.
Your business. Stay out of it.
My name is 2 things. So my full name is obviously a biblical name. A very unique one, which I've never ever in my entire life run into another person with my name, so that's always fun. But the shortened version of my name, Nico, is a nickname from a Steven Seagal movie. Which is where they got that for, like, the shorthand version of my name. Because I think, not everyone in my family, all of my sisters have pretty short names. And my youngest brother, okay, so it's only 2 of us that don't. But so, all of us have biblical names in my family, but
If not for
Except for
you,
possibly
you need
my middle
brand.
sister. I don't know if her name exists in the Bible. But given how many saints there are, you know, it's probably named after a saint. My guess would be from Ireland.
Don't kill me.
But
Good sir, no.
me and my brother have longer names, and then but nobody ever calls us by our longer names. It's just the short form.
My
So.
warehouse. The mage hunters know no mercy. Spare me, good man.
Renixu says, I thought about naming my kids after types of liquor. My son Tequila, my son over there Brandy. Hey, Brandy's a name. That would work.
Goals as a corpse.
Son Brandy. I got my son over there, Single Malt Scotch. He's probably my favorite. we got our botanical gin.
Fine.
Love them all. Some of them more than others.
Now get it.
Stony Gamer says, I hate when white girls get angry at something that doesn't concern them. I mean, I don't generally like it when anybody gets angry about something that doesn't concern them. Now, mind you, it depends on your definition. My definition of what should concern you isn't necessarily yours, and, you know, so there's that area of ambiguity. But yeah,
Very capable, supposedly.
getting pissed on someone else's behalf, not a big thing
Corinne's
for
been
me.
very effective. You should at least try.
Renexu says, then I
She's
realized
taken
there
a job
aren't enough
close
types of
by.
liquors that would make good
Follow
names
the
for the number of
canal
kids I
away
want.
from the fish market.
I mean,
The house
depends
is
what you mean by good name. If by the nature of being named after a liquor, there's lots of them. You got there's you could just go through them like that's my daughter peach schnapps, that's my daughter strawberry schnapps, that's my daughter watermelon schnapps. You know, just go through them all. How many kids do you want? You wanted like 15, right? I remember it being a lot.
You too, Geralt. You should go now, before Corinne goes back into hiding somewhere.
What if I want to find
Lexi says rum.
I live in the Bix,
Got my daughter
near
rum.
the fish market.
Stunning Gamer says, not to be racist or sexist. Typically when someone starts a sentence that way, the next part is going to be probably both of those things. But anyway, to any white girls that get angry at something that doesn't concern them. Actually, that's not that racist or sexist. I mean, maybe it just depends. Maybe I've just been conditioned to not think criticism of white people by nature of being white is racist, just because that's how society treats it. But that didn't come off as particularly offensive to me. Oh, I think I need to sneeze again. That time I had enough time to mute the mic. Stony Gamer says potato vodka. That's just redundant. That'd be like saying white Karen.
Just passing by, wanderer? Or do you seek something specific?
Who's asking?
Rudolf de Jonkier.
Ooh, Rudolf de Jonkier.
Yes. My ancestors laid the foundations of this city. I now own its largest bank.
Didn't need a recommendation.
Yeah, that was all more information than I needed. I don't really care who you are. I've had that a lot. You're out in public and they'll introduce themselves and you're like, oh, it's nice to meet you, and they'll be like if you haven't heard about them, they'll be like, what the hell, or whatever, and they'll go on and they'll give you a whole big spiel. And I'm like, that's fine. I didn't need to know any of that. Didn't want to particularly either.
I don't usually let strangers.
Lexi1397 says, my dad wanted to call me Alexandria, and my mom wanted Lexi, so naturally they combined them to Lexizandria. It's quite a unique and interesting name. At least 4, preferably 8 to 10, maybe up to 16, as many as I can produce before my future wife hits 40, and they start coming out as demonic frog creatures. I mean, you're less in a danger of them coming out as demonic frog creatures, and more of a danger of them just coming out with, you know, severe birth defects, or, you know, your wife dying in childbirth. But I think 4 to 8 is very reasonable as a number, because I've got a lot of relatives that have, you know, the amount of their children in that range. I have one aunt and uncle who have, like, 13 or 14 kids or whatever. So, like, that's the most in my family. Ooh, look at that. We can ard. It's one of my favorite things to do in this game. But the vast majority have between, like, 6 and 8. I think is like the average. I'd have to stop and think about it and count them all out on my fingers. But I'm pretty sure that's the average. So like my family has 6 children. Let me think. 1, 2, 3. I think the smallest family, there's 2 of them out of my dad's siblings that only have 4 children. But all the rest have more than that, so. Lexus laughed. Hold on, I'll do a quick radio check and then I'll mute the stream and leave. Fun, fun.
That's blood. Don't spill it.
Lexi says, I think 4 to 5 is a great number. So it depends. The thing I always tell people about having kids is, A, the bare minimum that you want to have is actually 3. And now the reasoning for that, it goes through a bunch of things, and this is based on personal experience and everyone that I know, because it seems to really follow this trend. It is impossible to have only one child and not have that child turn out a spoiled, maladjusted brat most of the time. You know, there are examples where you have only children who are just, their parents were very careful to make sure that they were raised right, or the child themselves was just able to figure out the right way to do things. So it happens. But like 99.99% of the time, only children are spoiled, maladjusted brats. So because of that, you need at least 2. But the problem with 2 is, in a, you know, a good family, where you have a married couple raising them, 2 means that you still have 1 parent per child, which means that the kids never get used to not having at least one person's full attention to them. So that's why 3 is actually what I would consider the healthy bare minimum. Now, past that, it really is all personal, you know, however many you can have, because maybe, you know, you're in a couple, you know, that is just super adept to raising children, and you're really good at doing it correct, and making sure that they're healthy and well-adjusted, and, you know, all that sort of stuff, up to, you know, 14 or 15 or whatever, you know, maybe you can raise a whole bunch of them. But maybe you can't. And so the point at which you should stop is however many you can manage is the real point. Because I know people that they think that, you know, the more the better, no matter what. Even if they turn out to just be absolutely terribly adjusted adults who, you know, are a drag on society instead of an asset to it. And so I would argue that that's not inherently good, you know. Yeah, you have 12 kids, but they're all terrible, you know. And you haven't prepared any of them for real life, and now they're all living terrible lives and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I would say the best amount is the absolute maximum that you can manage to raise them all, you know, well.
There was a cradle on the second
Estonian Gamer says, hey man, I'm a single child. Like I said, I'm not saying all, just the vast majority. Lexi says, I only have 2 siblings, lol. Like I said, 3 is what I consider to be the minimum. And now that also might be the maximum. You know, that might be all you can manage. But it's... And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's the best way to have your best chance at getting well-adjusted, healthy children where the parents can easily still manage it. Because 3 isn't that much, you know. It's not that hard. I have 3 children, you know.
Another masterpiece. An oven and a blackened...
Estonian says, okay, for real, I'm gonna mute. I went on duty as a cop. Good. Lexi1397 said, are you a spoiled brat? That's good, yeah. Estonian Gamer said, in a tone of outrage, hey, I'm an only child. But he didn't clarify whether or not he is also a spoiled brat. Don't think so. Renexu says, I have 6 brothers, all of them twice my age. Yeah, that's always hard, too. When you have big age gaps in siblings, it can be hard on the children, because especially if, like, you have a whole bunch of kids and then a big, long gap and then 1 kid, it can be really hard on the kid, because the parents have been through enough that you're no longer being treated as an only child. You know, like, especially if there's a big age gap and your parents are old by the time you're born, it can be a really rough childhood. But you also don't have those siblings to cling to, you know. So that could be rough. Do you have any sisters, Redneck Zeus, or is it just a family of 7 boys?
I wouldn't do that anymore if I were you, Sam.
Dr. Zadin says, I want as many children as my wife can give. Like I said, as far as a max, I don't believe there is a max number until you get to something ridiculously high. You know, Redneck Zeus says 2 sisters. Okay, so it's a pretty big family then. That's a good-sized family. Yeah, I don't believe in a max unless, like I said, I don't think it's feasible that 2 people could, like, honestly raise, say, 30 children or something like that and have them be healthy, well-adjusted, you know. I don't want to use the term self-actualized, but, you know, children who can take care of themselves and hopefully are primed to raise their own family. Because you don't get that through neglect, abuse, or, just latchkey parenting. You never get productive children from that style of parenting.
Why am I tormenting her?
I'm not tormenting anyone. Scary dreams are great.
Dr. Zodin says, I wish to follow God's command to be fruitful and prosper. That is obviously what anyone who would call themselves a Christian should do. It is important to note, now mind you, every denomination of Christian is going to have their own opinion about this. And I don't know all of them offhand. But so, for example, the Catholic Church, as a centralized church, has documented positions on everything. And so there are a lot of Catholics who believe that that command to be fruitful and prosper, you know, to multiply, is you have to have the max amount of children no matter what. That's not biblical, because all throughout every single passage in Scripture that has anything to do with raising children, you don't see, you know, people maximizing the amount of children they can produce. It has more to do with, obviously, the openness to life. You have, if you're trying to have sacramental marriage, the openness to life needs to be there, otherwise it's not a sacramental marriage. So you can't actually be married in the Christian sense if you don't intend to have kids. That means you're not actually married. But that doesn't mean you need to have a baker's dozen kids. Because once you get to the point, and there's a moral argument to be made that if you're putting the well-being of your children, you know, or the livelihood of them on the backs of someone else, you're not actually raising those children. You're not being fruitful. You're not prospering. Someone else is, and they're raising your children, whether they're just paying for it or they have to actually do all of the work. So that's why I say it needs to be as many as you can take care of. If you are not capable of making the money for it, or, you know, actually physically doing it for more than a couple children, then it's irresponsible to just keep having children, because they're just going to be a burden on someone else, whether that's the state or your other relatives.
Who are you?
So, like I said, there are finer points of the command to be fruitful and prosper than just having tons and tons of kids. Renixu says, split family. Mom had 5, Dad had 3, and then had 2 more together. Okay. Yeah, split families typically have large amounts.
It was all too real.
So are you one of the ones from the together, or are you from Mom or Dad? How do you fit in there, Zeus, if you don't mind me asking? Hypermapping says, bro, your family must be playing Bannerlord or something. That's a fascinating amount of children, in a good way. Yeah, like I said, he might be talking about Zeus. I know, like I said, for my family, you have, on my dad's side, my grandparents, and they had 8 children. And each one of those children had, like I said, the 2 least of them, which would be the second oldest boy and the youngest boy, they have 4 children. And that's the smallest families out of everyone in there. The oldest, which is my dad, has 6 children. Then, like I said, the second oldest has 4. The third oldest, which is a woman, has 1, 2, 3, 4... 6, so same as my family. Then the next one down he's the one with like 13 kids or something like that, 13 or 14. It's a whole bunch. It's more than anyone else in the family. Then the next one down from there has 5, and the next one down from there has, oh, I don't know. The next one down from there I can't ever remember, but it's at least 8. It might be more than that. I don't know them very well. And then the next one down from there has 7. So, like I said, almost everyone, the average is probably 6 or 7, you know, averaging out the whole thing, but it's a lot. It resulted in my my grandfather, so my dad's dad, having, within his lifetime, 60 grandchildren, and he just died this last summer. And at the time of death, I think somewhere between 12 and 25 great-grandchildren. So, big family.
A bit of both.
Renix Zeus says, I am the youngest. Okay, I think I remember you telling me that, Zeus, that you were the youngest out of everyone. Dr. Zodin says, speaking of which, what is your thought on the current Pope? Myself, as a Lutheran, is obvious on the popes, but this particular guy makes me sick to my stomach. So, as a Catholic layperson, it is actually not within my authority to speak on the legitimacy of a pope. So, if that's what you're asking, I actually can't have an opinion on that. That being said, I think most of the problems that we've seen with Pope Francis are that he is from South America, and all of South America, as far as the religious aspects, now Catholic and otherwise, all of the Protestant ones down there are the same, they're all deeply embedded in what's called liberation theology, which is basically communism. And so that's most of the problems that I have with Pope Francis, and they're all just encyclicals and opinions. He hasn't actually made any heterodox statements as far as speaking ex cathedra, you know, things that are infallible. So if you know, the Pope is only infallible under extremely specific circumstances, and it has to be speaking to the entire church on a matter of morals or dogma, and it needs to be literally physically from St. Peter's seat. So none of the last, well, 2 popes for sure, but I don't know if St. Pope John Paul II ever did either. So there actually haven't been any infallible statements. So technically, even if all of his opinions were absolutely terrible and against Christian teachings, they're all just opinions at this point. So I think that he's definitely a Jesuit, which is not good. Or at least if you're going from an Orthodox Catholic point of view, the Jesuits are not Orthodox, and so they kind of stand contrary to most of us conservatives in the Catholic Church. But like I said, I can't officially have an opinion about him as for validity, but I think if you look around into a lot of your softcore leftist Christianity of the modern age, he fits right into it.
Let's begin.
You know, which is why most Catholics are not a huge fan of them, because the Catholic Church is by nature a conservative organization. We care most formally about tradition, rules, standards, things that have to be that way. So
I accepted a job once.
Whenever you've got the more liberal or progressive or whatever you want to do leadership in the church, most of your conservative body of the church will push back against them.
To me at that time. Years later,
Riddick Zeus says, Dr. Zowden, ELCA, ALC, or LCMS? Dr. Zowden says, Missouri Synod Lutheran.
But the waters of oblivion, they failed in her case. Siri came out of Broccolon with me. I sent her back to her grandmother then.
I have a, one of my mom's sisters is Lutheran.
By destiny.
By something
so,
more.
I've been to a couple Lutheran services, but not a whole lot.
To share another memory?
I think it was Babylon B that made the video of the, all, like,
no need to rush.
Describing all of the different
Siri was
brands of Christianity, and I think they said, for Lutheranism, they said all the boring parts of Catholicism and all the boring parts of Protestantism mashed together. I was like, that's fun.
Sword work, development of her stamina.
Dr. Zowden says, I will admit my church is very Catholic-like. Well, and you'll see that with certain sects of different Protestant denominations. Anglicans, not all of them, mind you, but some Anglican churches, some Lutheran churches, some Episcopalian churches will be very Catholic-light. So, like, they'll be, you know, far more conservative. They'll go to a lot of the high right. Some of them, even the Protestant ones, some of them will even do a whole bunch of the stuff still in Latin. There will just be certain things that they still protest against, which is why they're still Protestants. The only... So, from a Catholic point of view, the view there is that, as a Catholic, you have a bunch of different categories of what we call separated brethren. And so those would be anyone who follows the Abrahamic God and believes in, you know, at least some of the sacraments that the Catholic Church has, is in that. So you're in what we would call partial communion with Christ. And so that includes Jews, Muslims, and all the Protestants. The only church that calls themselves Christian but isn't and isn't recognized because of it is Mormons or Latter-day Saints. They're not a legitimate Christian religion because they do not baptize in the name of the Trinity. They don't baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit or Holy Ghost, whereas all of your Protestant religions do. Okay? So if that's why you can, a Lutheran could pretty easily convert to Catholicism because your baptism in the Catholic Church is viewed as legitimate. It's a legitimate baptism as far as the Church is concerned. Whereas, like I said, with Mormons, it's not, so you'd have to start from scratch. What do we got? Estonian Gamer said, I'm back. My coping was cut short by a server restart. That's fun. Hypermapping says, what's the difference between Orthodox and Catholic Christianity? In aspects of the faith, of like faith, prayers, and scriptures, I'm not Christian, so I don't know a lot of information about this topic. So it depends what you mean by Orthodox. Orthodox just means one who follows tradition and cares about rules. When you're looking at it at a basic level, that's all the phrase or the descriptor Orthodox means. That's why you can have Orthodox Jews and non-Orthodox Jews, because they take it differently. Water Draco says, Sweet Witcher. Hello, Water Draco. We're having a religious discussion right now, but we're also kind of playing The Witcher while we're doing it. But so, if you mean that, then it just means how conservative in nature is the person, and you could be Orthodox in anything. You could be an Orthodox Lutheran if, you know, you care about the traditions and the actual structure of the church as it means something, instead of, you know, it's this ever-changing thing that means whatever you want, you know, the sort of moral relativistic point of view. But the other one you could say is the difference between, like, Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism. It's one of the first schisms in the church. Eastern Orthodoxy is almost what you'd call your first Protestant religion, or what do you want to call it? Denomination. So the difference there is that Eastern Orthodoxy is the closest in what we would call separated brethren for the Catholic Church, because they still recognize all the same sacraments. They still do basically all the same prayer rites. The Mass is almost identical. You'll see small differences. So in Eastern Orthodoxy, they will have a much larger reliance on, say, paintings. So you'll see, if you go into the wall, if you've ever been in an Eastern Orthodox church, you'll see that they have a lot of paintings, a lot of pictures. They don't have a lot of statues. So, like, that's a difference in form or whatever. But there'll be statues or paintings of the same people or thing, you know. It's just a different art style there. Another one is that, so in Catholic or most Protestant denominations, the sign of the cross is top, down, left, right. Eastern Orthodoxy might be done with the left hand, but either way it goes the opposite way. It goes right, left. And so it's the same thing in essence, it's just slightly different on the surface. But the only reason why Eastern Orthodoxy is considered somewhat separate from the Catholic Church is just because the hierarch, which was of Constantinople initially, but now it's just the hierarch of the Eastern Orthodox Church, doesn't recognize the supremacy of the Pope in Rome. That's it. That's the only thing that separates them. They still recognize the authority, but they kind of treat it like their hierarch is at the same level as the Pope. That's it. That's the whole difference between Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism. But like I said, they still have all the same sacraments, all the same rules, the same structure, the same requirements, all that sort of stuff. The Estonian Gamer says, not coping, I meant copping. That makes sense. Well, at least that's good. Karina Smirnov says, hello. Hello, Karina. Dr. Zowden says, hypermapping. Orthodox versus Roman Catholic followed a different pope during the first major church split. That's what, yeah, like I said, it's what you'd call your first Protestant offshoot of the Catholic Church, because it was very early on, but in that essence, like most Protestant denominations, you know, the farther back you go, the closer to Catholicism they are. That's why when you have your traditional or Orthodox Lutherans nowadays, they're actually still pretty dang similar to the Catholic Church, because they split off far enough back that they're still mostly the same. Lutherans, I think, are just missing a couple sacraments. I think that's it, for major differences. They might have also taken out a couple books from the Bible. I can't remember for sure. But it's still pretty dang close. The more modern you get, the less like Catholicism it is. So your evangelical, you know, Church of Christ, non-denominational Christians, those are the most far away from the Catholic Church. And a lot of your old ones, like I said, like Lutheranism, are still very close. Redneck Zoo says, Eastern Orthodox didn't believe the Holy Spirit proceeds from both the Father and the Son, only the Father. That's what I'm saying. It was part of the Arianism scandal at the beginning, because basically when you go through Arianism, the scandal comes from them not being able to comprehend the fact that God being ever present would be ever present in all three persons of the Trinity. So they believed that, like you said, that the Holy Spirit doesn't come from the Father and the Son, only from the Father. And in the same way, Arians insisted that the Son also comes from the Father and proceeds forth from there. Not that that God the Son, as the third person or the second person of the Trinity, was ever present from the beginning of time. And so Arianism is just a misunderstanding of the nature of the Holy Trinity. And, you know, that was the first major split in the church, was because there was, like Zeus pointed out, this disagreement there in the nature of the Holy Trinity. Well, it says, random fact, there is a Confederate state in South America whose inhabitants are all descendants of Confederate soldiers. A state? Confederate state? You mean like they still consider themselves part of a confederation instead of part of the Union? Or like there's an actual state in the Union where every single person there is a descendant of Confederate soldiers? Because that would be difficult to prove. Or you mean like the State of Jones? I never saw that movie, but I heard it actually wasn't very good. The one with Matthew McConaughey. I thought from the previews I was like, hey, that looks like it might be interesting. But then I didn't end up seeing it. Estonian Gamer says, Eastern Orthodox churches are absolutely beautiful. Yes, they are. I find... And see, a lot of that comes from the fact that Eastern Orthodoxy stayed very, very conservative. In the middle of the 1900s, you have a big change in the way that Catholic churches were designed, basically. So anything built after, like, 1950, as far as Catholic churches, until very recently. Some of the more modern ones are going back to classical style and look much better. But anything built between, like, 1950 and 2005, at least, are what most Catholics would consider to be very ugly. They don't look like a Catholic church. They look like... And again, pardon this, any Protestants that really like the style of their church, they look like a Protestant church. They don't look like a high, grand Catholic church that's supposed to inspire eye and draw one's eyes upward. They look like, you know, a community meeting hall. And it's not entirely the same. And Eastern Orthodoxy didn't fall into that. They kept the style of their buildings very orthodox, which makes sense given the name. High ceilings, stained glass windows, rose windows, beautiful architecture. It was not ever supposed to look understated or simple. Walking into them is supposed to feel awe-inspiring. You're supposed to immediately know, okay, this is not just another gathering hall. This isn't the rec center. This isn't a school. It's not a business place. This is the house of God. It's supposed to look super different right away. You know? I think that it's the misconception because what is something that Protestants would say, and that is true, is that you can worship God anywhere. Correct. In fact, you must. Everywhere is a place of worship, technically. But only the church is the house of God. And so it definitely should stand apart in that regard. You know, at least that's the Orthodox idea. Lexi says, Karina, hey girl, how are you doing? Estonian Gamer says, okay, I'll go back to copying now. Hypermapic says, at Doctor's Out and at Dare to Game, at Redneck Zeus. That's a lot. Thanks a lot for the information, everyone. You're welcome from my point of view, Hypermapping. Karina Smirnov says she's still alive. That's good.
Where's Dan?
Dr. Saudin says, quick change of subject. In Bannerlord, what is better, bows or crossbows? So that depends. Bows have a higher fire rate, typically higher ammo. That's typically their strong points. Crossbows have higher accuracy and better range. Both of them can deal very, very similar types of damage, so I don't like to say one is better than the other. It'll really depend on the tier of bow or crossbow you're using. But crossbows typically have a much slower fire rate and much lower ammo, but a lot higher range and accuracy. Whereas, like I said, with bows, I mean, if you go with the Fine Champions, they're ridiculously powerful and have great accuracy. So it's not universal. But, yeah, crossbows have better range and accuracy, but like I said, whereas with a quiver of arrows, you might have 35 arrows. With a with bolts, you'll have like 18, so it's a lot less. It depends. I like archers better in the open field than I like crossbowmen, and I think crossbowmen make really good siege defenders. So.
It says planner.
Seems Dandelion's taking the tavern business seriously.
Lexi says, oh, just keeping these miscreants in line. I'm glad you were here to help. Hello. Dr. Zavin says, hi, Karina. How is your back feeling? Renixu says, there are some nice Protestant
Seems when
churches
he inherited this
near.
fine
The most beautiful
establishment,
church in the
came with some
nearby town
fine
is a Methodist church.
responsibilities.
That's what I said. If you can go into any denomination of Christianity, or almost anyone. Like I said, the more modern ones are harder. But anyone that is somewhat orthodox and still cares, they think that the architecture should reflect the Word of God and therefore be high and awe-inspiring. Because I've seen beautiful Lutheran churches too, you know. So, like I said, they definitely exist. It's just that any of the more modernistic crap from any religion always looks bad.
Really want to track down the women dandelion.
My local church, the one here in my hometown, my local Catholic church, is one of the ugliest churches I've ever been in. You know, it is a Catholic church, and therefore it is still the house of God, but it's more hearkening to a cave than a structure designed to lift one's eyes upward. So, not a fan of that.
I lost the lassies at my house.
Stony Gamer says, God, I love abusing police powers to violate traffic laws. I mean, in Grand Theft Auto, traffic laws aren't really all that important, though.
And you figure that.
Karina Smirnov says, I'm semi here. I'm going to lurk now. I'll be here if you need me. That's good. Renexu says, the mainline Protestant churches tend to have more beautiful churches. Problem is, the mainline churches are the ones most infected with progressivism and apostasy. Stony Gamer says, 10-4 and ego. Modern churches are ugly AF. Karina Smirnov says, I went to a chiropractor a couple days ago, but they still feel like trash. I have lost a total of 17 pounds. Not exactly happy. I'd be pretty happy if I lost 17 pounds. I never want to get sick to lose weight. So, like, my brother, I think he had a real bad case of Lyme's disease a year or two ago. But during that time, he lost like 30 pounds. I was like, damn, I'd look great if I lost 30 pounds. But I also don't want to have a really severe case of Lyme's disease. So, you know, it's one of those prioritizing what's more important. Feeling like you're dying all the time, but also losing a bunch of weight, or not. So I hope you feel better, Karina Smirnov, but and I also hope that those 17 pounds weren't ones that you needed. I know a lot of females in my life, a lot of my relatives, are actually on the low end of the body mass index spectrum, and losing 17 pounds might kill them. So I hope that is not the case with you. Dr. Zowden is praying for you, Karina, so that's good. Redneck Zeus says, conservatives need to take back the mainline churches. Well, I mean, and that's just... The problem is religion is inherently conservative in nature. Like I said, there are very few religions that are designed from the ground up as, you know, modernist, progressive organizations. They're supposed to be about tradition, especially Christian ones, because it's all in the... You know, not all in the past because Christ lives on, but... you know, what we worship is mostly based on things that have already happened and will happen again. We have that, you know, dichotomy of what is and what will be. But you can't be like, the past doesn't matter and be Christian. It just doesn't work. And so I would say in a lot of circumstances, society would be better off if, you know, your conservative voices actually took a place of authority and power and influence in those organizations. But I agree, Zeus. I think it needs to happen in the church more than anywhere else. Because as an inherently conservative organization, you know, it's right there on the surface. It needs to happen. Stony Gamer says, duty calls. I have to be a cop abusing one's powers. Dr. Zowden says, isn't Lyme's permanent and affect your joints? So that's what I thought too, because when my brother told me he has Lyme's, I was like, well, now don't you always have it and it'll flare back up? And he said that his doctor said apparently there's different types of Lyme's and only some of them are chronic. So I don't know. I always thought that it was that Lyme's disease was always chronic, but apparently it's not always chronic. So, because I'm pretty sure my grandmother has chronic Lyme's. So I've never gotten it because despite the fact that I've got a ton of nerve damage all over my body, I can always tell if there's bugs crawling on me. And so ticks don't typically make it to be able to latch on to me. I'm not so desperate as some people because I've seen quite a few of my relatives, like, absolutely despise... I have to read that. That's funny. I have to read that planner. But a lot of people I know absolutely despise ticks, and I get that because I hate them too. They're gross, nasty parasites that really only do bad things. I know people that will do the old duct tape around the leg thing, so that way when the ticks are crawling up, they get stuck on the duct tape and they can't make it up to where they can bite you. I don't go that far, but like I said, I can typically feel them crawling on me, which is why they don't normally get a great amount of opportunity to bite me. So I don't have limes. Never have. Hope I never do. Gotta talk to Zoltan before I leave.
Still here? Looking for something? Actually...
I'm just gonna skip through these. We have to go to talk to all of Dandelion's girlfriends.
This hollered through...
Yes.
Rosa Varatra.
Like a door.
Gotta love that Nilfgaardian beauty.
A fig... Well, you want it? Nah. Why?
Renixu says ticks in the hair are the worst.
Well...
How do I put this? I once had a tick latch onto my taint. That's probably the most diplomatically correct way I can phrase that. And that was the one that got a hold of me the longest. Because it was in a real good spot for hiding. But eventually I found it. I don't typically get them in my hair. Because like I said, the problem with... Because if they want to get up into my hair, they got to crawl on my neck or face. And I'm definitely going to feel them there.
I will get you every last copper. With interest. Give me a week.
Dr. Zion says, I believe that the backlash to this modern liberal agenda will be the tenfold of what is going on today. Politics, culture changes as the pendulum swings. I agree. I think that's the way that it typically goes, is however far it swings one way, it's going to swing that far the other way. So if you see an extreme change in one direction, you usually see an extreme backlash to it. That's just how culture for humanity seems to go. Bullet says, I hate summer. It gets too hot for me. Yeah, I'm not nuts about it either.
Coin and leave.
Works. Vespula's to pay or be taught a lesson.
Already given her a verbal reprimand. Now go before I teach you a lesson.
Come on.
Damn. Why'd I pay him? I should have just killed him. Yeah, but Bullet, I agree. I mean, I hate winter. I hate extreme cold, hot more than I hate extreme cold.
Men will help a stranger out of the kindness of their heart.
Version says, I just joined the stream. The first thing I hear is tick in my taint. Yeah, we're talking about ticks. I hate extreme hot more than I hate extreme cold, but I arguably hate winter in Wisconsin more than I hate summer in Wisconsin. Just because... Even though we'll get ridiculously hot days in the summer here, most of them are not over the level where it's undoable to do stuff, and so you can still comfortably work outside. Even if I'm sweating my ass off and I'm you know, burning my eyes out with salt water, I can still get things done. You know, then I just have to go dunk my head into the well or something like that to cool down. Whereas, like I said, today, this morning, it was negative 20 without wind chill outside. That's chilly. That's a little too cold to do stuff outside. So, it's hard for me to say. I also typically, Bullet, I feel where you're going for. If you knew me personally, and so I was someone that you talk to on a daily basis in real life, during the summer, you'd know I just complain about the heat all the time. You know, I'm one of those people that people will be like, nice day, I'm like, it's too damn hot! You know, that's me all the time. But like I said, I do arguably hate winter more than I hate summer. Obviously, spring and fall are the seasons that I love the most. I live my life for those two seasons. It's a good thing that they're spaced apart, because if I had two seasons right next to each other that I hated, I probably wouldn't make it through.
What's it like at the bathhouse? Have I got any friends there?
Renexu says, damn gooch grabber. That's the thing. They get you somewhere like that where you're not looking frequently. You really don't get it unless you scratch and you're like, huh, that's new.
Thanks for your help.
Bullet says, the high here for today is 70. Holy crap. That's pretty warm. Yeah, the high where I live today is probably 0. Lexi says, woke up this morning and got in my car. It said negative 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Like I said, it was cold for me. The garage door, I couldn't get the garage door to work when I got back home. I would press to open and it would get about 2 spaces up and then freeze and, you know, stop, because it triggers the resistance warning so it doesn't break the, you know, the motor on the garage door opener. And so I had to open it manually and put the car in. It was a whole big hassle, and it was so cold outside. I got back inside, and one of my daughters was walking around in a little dress, and I said, "You want to feel my cold hands?" And she's like, "No!" and runs away. She must have known right from the get-go that it was not warm outside.
You've come to the right spot. How might I be of service?
Lexi1397 says, I had a bear tick on the back of my neck as a kid and I had to get it surgically removed. Gross. Bear ticks do like to burrow in, though, and they're nice and small. I think, is it bear ticks or is it deer ticks that normally have Lyme's disease? I know it's not wood ticks. The vast majority of what we have around here is wood ticks. But we also have bear ticks and deer ticks, they just don't get on you as often. Typically, if you get a bear tick on you, I think they like to bite onto dogs, and then that's how they'll get onto you, so you actually get those in your house. Yet another reason why I don't like having dogs in a house.
So you're...
Dr. Zodin says, I got one on my ribs, and the wound took over 7 months to heal. And my dear sweet God, how it itched. It looked like I had a boob on the side of my body with how swollen it was. Yeah. Like I said, I typically get them out before I suffer anything severe. You know, I've never gotten Lyme's disease. I've never had to get one surgically removed. They very rarely bite me, and when they do, like I said, I find them before they even manage to get their head in. So, I don't like ticks. I'm always on the lookout for them. Dr. Zodin says, I'll take -30 any day rather than 100 degrees. I will... I've got caveats to that statement. If I can be inside, it doesn't matter to me either way, because my house has heat and my house has air conditioning. -30, if you actually have to be in it, and I have, I've had days where I needed to be out in -30 degree weather for, you know, hours and hours at a time. It is hard. That is harder than being out in 100 degrees. Because I've also had lots of days where I had to do physical labor, you know, making hay, cutting wood, stuff like that in 100 degrees outside. And you have to obviously just drink a shitload of water, otherwise you're just going to straight up die or have all your muscles lock up and everything. But it's much more doable in 100 degrees than it is in -30. Once you get down to -30, everything hurts. There isn't a layer of clothing you can wear to actually keep you warm. Thermal clothing, like at the stage that they wear like down in Antarctica, if you've ever been in a situation where you need to wear that, which I have been in, you're not warm underneath. It just keeps you from feeling like you're dying. Like that's the level at which you're insulated. The only alternative is like a lot of the tool companies sell the heated jackets now. You can do that. Only problem is that you'll start to sweat, and then if your heat shuts off because you're on the batteries dead, then you're screwed in really cold weather. But like I said, I've done both enough times, and I obviously hate the extreme heat. So I would say with caveats, if I don't have readily available sources of drinking water, yes, I'll take the -30 over 100 because the heat will kill you faster, especially if you have to work if you don't have water. But if you do have access to water, the problem with it being -30 is it takes like 3 minutes for it to freeze solid. So that's not great. But yeah, like I said, I've done both. It's hard for me to say which one I prefer. I'll definitely complain more about the heat.
Nice to meet you.
I can help with much more.
They're hard.
If you need new trousers,
so it sounds like both Dr. Zodin and Zeus have confirmed it is deer ticks that have Lyme's. I know it was one of them, I just couldn't remember which one. This guy might sell Gwent cards.
Glad to take a glove.
Of course.
Dang. No Gwent cards, but we can sell him some stuff. Ooh, that apparently used up most of his budget. Ooh. Not a lot of budget for that guy. I'm not going to play any though right now. Lexi says, I cannot function properly in the cold. I start to shut down if I get too cold. I'm like a phone. Yes, lithium-ion batteries do not perform well once you get down below freezing. And if you get down below 0, they will sometimes shut off almost immediately. Which is one of the reasons why I'm dubious about like pure electric vehicles in Wisconsin. I just don't know how well they're going to last in the cold. Like I said, this morning, my SUV struggled to start up. It was so cold. It did the old... We're talking a gas engine, not diesel. So, it's hard to say. Renexu says, I've grown to like the heat a lot more in these last couple of years. Like I said, I hate the heat. I don't ever want to be taken for someone who enjoys the excessive heat. But I've been in the excessive cold too much to generalize that I'll take it over the excessive heat. Because, you know, even when I visited down in Florida and I was just complaining the whole time that it was too hot, at least I could still function properly. Even me, someone who's lived my entire life in the subarctic conditions of Wisconsin for winters, trust me, -30 is not something you can ever really adapt to. Or if you did, it would have to be something that you were in all the time. It can't be a seasonal thing and adapt to it. So like your Inuits live in it all the time, and they also dress themselves in oil-soaked hide, you know, and build on thick personal layers of blubber, which is how they can live through it more readily. In Wisconsin, even though we look fat and we grow big beards, I shouldn't say look fat, even though we're fat and we grow big beards, it's still just super cold.
A rat bit him, and he's caught a fever.
Where'd you get bit?
I'm gonna look around and loot everything in the schoolhouse.
Don't die from rats, stupid.
Can I get some with you?
You don't die from rats, stupid. You could die from rats. They could very easily kill you.
That's enough. We're done.
Layering properly is a skill everyone should learn. That's true. You should always layer properly in hot or cold.
How do you know? Mum says
It is just the way to go. So, like, I, as an example, have a really nice thermal winter jacket. You know, it's very warm. And, or at least as far as, like I said, as far as thermal jackets can be. But when I throw it on over a t-shirt, you still get cold really fast. That's why, like I mean, you guys watch me on the streams. I pretty much am always wearing a t-shirt and a long sleeve shirt. That's the nakedest I'll get as someone who is dressed up. You know, obviously, when I'm sleeping in bed at night, I get more naked than that. But on any given day, you won't walk in and see me wearing, you know, a single shirt or something like that. That's just not... I layer all the time. Because you need to be able to have the versatility in being able to take something off.
No. I even considered granting him another chance.
Lexi says, there was one day I went hunting by myself and my heater shut off, and I had a doe standing in front of me. I sat there for about 40 minutes freezing before I said, F it. I got up and scared her off. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. Well, the coldest I've ever been is the time I got hypothermia. That was the coldest I've ever been. And I got cold because it was like 10, 15 below. I was out tracking coyotes and I ended up falling through some ice and soaked my body up to about my chin. And had to then hoof it back a couple miles before I was able to get into a house that nobody was occupying, so it was at like minimum operational standards, you know. The heat was on to like 45 just to make sure the pipes don't freeze, you know. And I was able to then strip out of my clothes and toss them in the dryer, get them going while I huddled in the 2 towels I was able to find in the house to, you know, try to keep myself warm while my clothes dried. That was the coldest I've ever been, but like I said, I got hypothermia that day, so it makes sense. But after that, most of the coldest I've ever been have been during rifle season, deer hunting, you know. You spend several hours sitting perfectly still in one spot, exposed to the elements, and it's like, you know, 0 or at or around somewhere close, nearly below 0. Got snow all around you. Not being able to move makes it really hard to stay warm. So I've gotten just ridiculously cold a lot of times while deer hunting. Dr. Zelvin says, biggest temp difference I suffered, 126 degrees to 75. I was in Iraq and it was a shock to the system. You mean like going from day to night? Yeah, that's what I've heard from the people I know that have spent a lot of times over in the Middle East, is that they'll go from just unbearably hot during the day to a very rapid shift to pretty damn cold at night. And even if you, like you said, 126 to 75, 75 isn't what you'd call cold, but when you're coming down from 126 in a rapid shock, it can be really hard on the body. During the summer in Wisconsin, when we get up into the high 90s, you know, hundreds with 200% humidity, you'll see a lot of people spending a lot of time selecting their beer in the beer cooler. They're like, oh, you gotta, all the pros and cons, find out your exact how much am I paying per ounce. That's the type of consideration that goes into it when it's hot outside. Lexi1397 says it was negative 17 degrees without wind chill. Pretty chilly.
I'm here for a reason.
Renex Zeus says, knowing how to dress in general seems to have been forgotten skill in our modern society. That's true, for sure. It's something that I constantly, even relatives, you know, people that I would think are normally relatively
We've met before.
well-adjusted adult-type people, but they'll wear joggers or sweatpants or whatever out in public situations. The worst example of this is I've got cousins that have wore something between sweatpants and pajama pants to mass. You're going to mass.
Looking for a girl.
At the very least, in my opinion, you should wear jeans that aren't full of rips and holes and a clean shirt to mass. That's like the most casual I can see being acceptable going to church. Men should never wear shorts at church, ever. And that may be controversial, but you should not wear shorts to church. But, like I said, the wearing basically pajamas... Redneck Zeus says, stop wearing gym clothes to places that are not the gym. Yeah, you go to, like, Walmart or something like that, and you've got, you know, all of these 20-somethings walking around, or, in certain areas, 40-somethings walking around, wearing, what do you call it, like, leggings all the way up their butt crack, and basically just a sports bra on top. I'm like, that's not public clothing. That's basically underwear that you're wearing right there. You know, you're supposed to have something on top of that. It would be the equivalent of me walking around in boxer briefs. Yeah, it's the vast majority of people out there that are dressing. I mean, and now some people are doing it for shock value. Some are doing it for attention, whatever the case may be. Or because they really like when people are looking at them, you know. But I think a lot of people are just super lazy. And like I said, that's my problem with people who are basically just wearing pajamas in public settings, especially if it's a setting with some sort of standards. And that's why my best example is going literally to mass wearing sweatpants. I just can't stand it. Lexi1397 says, I wish I would have thought about the walk to the stand before actually walking out there. I walked about a mile to my stand in my insulated bibs, 2 shirts, jacket, and my Iceman boots. Heavy. Yeah, if you do that, then you're going to be all sweaty, and then you sit down and freeze solid. It's the most crucial mistake that a lot of new hunters will make, is they'll get super dressed up, and they'll forget the fact that they have a mile hike ahead of them, and they're going to get super sweated up. For me, it's just, I can't escape it. If I'm going rifle hunting, I'm gonna, you know, I've obviously got my layers and layers, you know. You got at least 4 or 5 layers on, and you're super well bundled up. The moment I get everything on and I've zipped my outer pants over top of my boots, that's when I need to take a shit. Every time. Doesn't matter what happens, you know. And I'll do it. I'll be like, okay, this time I'm going to make sure I'm going to stretch, I'm going to brush my teeth, I'm going to have some coffee or whatever before I get dressed up. And that way I can go to the bathroom, take care of business, and then get dressed up. Doesn't matter. My body's like, no. I'm going to wait until I'm good and comfortable, got all my layers on, I'm nice and warm, and then I'm going to need to take a shit. Every time. Doesn't matter. Dr. Zowden says, denim jeans and a button-down for church at a bare minimum. That's what I'm saying. Like, I could even see, especially because it's just so hard to get, especially a lot of young people into church, I could see being fine with, like I said, clean pants that aren't full of holes, jeans or whatever, you know, and even a clean t-shirt, as long as it doesn't have, like, some offensive or, you know, graphic type of picture or something, or words on it. I could see that. Now, my personal recommendation would be, like you said, at the very least, clean denim jeans and a button-down shirt. You know, doesn't even need to be tucked in. Just at that level, I think that you're showing enough respect for the place that you're in that I have nothing to criticize there. I've got relatives, mind you, that would be like, no, nothing other than you need slacks, you need Oxford shoes, you need a button-down shirt, and you have to have a tie. You know, whatever.
For us, it's Novigrad or death.
That's enough for you lots. Sod off, or I'll have you skewered.
I don't go that far. Like I said, I typically, the way that I look at it is, you should be clean, you have to be fully dressed. That's it. Like, you shouldn't be wearing filthy, disgusting work clothes or walking in your coveralls or something like that, and you need to be dressed in a modest way. So that's why I said, like, for example, men shouldn't wear shorts to church. You know, usually your churches will have requirements for women, so, like, no strapless dresses or something like that. You know, you're not there. It's not a vanity show. So you should never be like, yeah, well, I need to show my cleavage, otherwise what am I even doing, or whatever, you know. A lot of times, like in the summer, you'll see, especially like high school aged boys, they'll come into church and like they're, you know, oil stained, ripped up blue jeans and a cut off t-shirt. And at some level, you're like, well, I'm glad you're coming to church. You know, I'm glad that you're still going. But at another level, it's not that hard to put on some clean clothing. You know, it's doable. Redneck Zeus says, and clean shoes at least. Yeah.
Tombs in a cave in a hillside.
There's a certain degree of respect that you show by the way that you dress.
Huge hoard. Might find something that suits you.
I know a lot of people hate that. They hate having some sort of a dress requirement for going anywhere. I think every place on Earth should have a sign posted out front that has the exact dress requirements for it. What's wrong with having standards? That's what I always come back to. People act like if you have any standards at all that it's discriminatory, but how is that discriminatory? You know? In any case. My favorite thing to tell people is, I believe, it might have been on The Office, but I can't remember what it was. But people ask, like, what's the dress code for this, you know? Is it business casual or whatever? And I'll say black tie optional, just like everything in life. Because every situation in every location is black tie optional. If you wanted, you could wear a full, you know, 3-piece suit, black tie, white shirt, black jacket, black pants, black shoes, all that sort of stuff. That's the most formal you can dress. And you could do that in any situation. You could go to Mass like that on Sunday. You could go to the grocery store like that. You could wear that on a plane. You know, it's always black tie optional. And so, like, an example of that is,
we meet again.
I sing in a choir.
Yeah.
It's just a group of people that we know, but, you know, we sing choral music, so we are a choir. And, we'll do things. So, like, recently we sang at a funeral for some people that wanted us to sing there. And we get there, and so it was at a Catholic church, but not all the people at the funeral were Catholic. So that happens. You know, you had a bunch of Protestants and they're doing things differently and everything. And a lot of the Protestants, or just non-Catholics in general, come in and, like, you'll see the guys wearing baseball caps in church. And if you ask them, hey, could you not wear your hat in church? They'll throw a fit. They'll be like, I don't believe in God, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to take my hat off. And whenever I talk to someone like that, I'm like, two things. One, it's a funeral. And at funerals, you take your hat off. No matter what. It's a sign of respect. You're taking it off as a sign of respect. Even if you're outside while they're burying them in the cemetery, traditionally you took your hat off. It's not hard to explain this to military people. That's a good saving grace there. Is that I've known like atheists, like rabid atheists that were in the military that have enough respect to take their hat off at a funeral, at least when they're inside.
Is Molly a horse?
And so that's, you know, something you gotta like, but.
I did come here to see Molly after all.
We get there, and I'm wearing a suit because it's a funeral. You know, it's a funeral at a Catholic church. I'm wearing a regular black suit. My brother was wearing slacks, a dress shirt, and a tie. You know, all that or whatever. And some of the other people, even in the choir with us, were wearing like jeans and a polo shirt. And they were like, "Wow, you went for a full suit." I was like, "It's a funeral. I'm not going to be underdressed at a funeral. That just, even if it's someone I don't know, that's just a lack of respect, in my opinion." Being afraid of being overdressed is not something that makes a whole lot of sense to me. Because you should never be afraid of being overdressed. You should always only ever be worried about being underdressed if you're going to some sort of a public situation. That's my opinion.
Tell you what, win, and I shall give you my finest saddle.
Lexi says, I wish I had clothes that actually fit me right. My jeans are either too long or too tight around my hips. Well, to be fair, the female body can sometimes be tough to get the right jeans for. That's why I know most of the women I know, once they find a specific brand that fits them really well, that's the only brand they ever want to buy, is because, you know, ooh, I'll do chestnuts.
Chestnuts encamped nearby. Redanian chestnut might want to impress its
Bullet
king.
says, I have always liked the no shirt, no shoes, no service, but no pants is fine. Yeah. I think the reason why they don't list pants is because even the most decrepit societies in the world understand that loin covering is the basic level of being dressed. So, I mean, you'll see it around, especially with like youths in schools and stuff. They'll have, or whatever, you know, for summer vacation, you'll see young adolescent men walking around town, sometimes barefoot, but that's pretty rare these days. I feel like that, you know, was probably a much bigger thing back in like the 70s and earlier. But you'll still see adolescent, high school age boys walking around without shirts during the summer. And so I feel like it's still a necessary sign. But even those ones will at least be wearing shorts or pants or something. Now, I've never been the type of person to walk around shirtless for two reasons. One of which being, obviously, it's immodest and stupid and unnecessary in pretty much any situation. And another one being, I've got very fair skin, so walking around in the summer shirtless would just mean that I would look like a lobster, you know, right quick. I love in the races in this game, all you gotta do is box off the horses behind you, and you can trot basically the whole way. You know? Because, so it's not really a race as much as it is who's in front and who makes sure that the people behind them can't get in front of them. Dr. Zadin says, I've seen golf attire, khaki shorts, and a polo t-shirt on children to young adults, high school age, and I think that's okay at church. However, ditch the shorts the moment you're over the age of 18. I could see that argument. Maybe on children, shorts are more appropriate, even in a setting like church. But exactly, though, once you're over the age of 18, especially for men, once you're a man, dress like a man. Act like a man. Why is it so hard for society to be fine with that? That's basically been my general opinion. People, like, it'll be real hot outside and I'll be working and I'll be wearing pants. And people are like, why are you wearing pants? It's like 100 degrees outside. I'm like, two things. One, I'm an adult man. And so pants are the general attire. I will only not wear pants, like long pants, if the situation specifically demands that I don't. You know, like swimming or something like that. Number two, I don't believe in not wearing pants while working. You know? A part of clothing is designed to protect the body. And so, let's say I'm cutting wood or splitting wood or something like that or whatever, and there's the possibility of injury. Why would you want to do that in shorts when you could have at least jeans protecting that flesh? That's the way I look at it. Redneck Zeus says, take off your hat indoors. Yeah, take off your hat indoors. You know, don't wear a hat inside. You don't wear a hat while you're eating. Anytime you're going to pray or pseudo prayer type things, so like the national anthem or stuff like that, you know, where it's not actually a religious thing, but it is a thing about respect. You're not supposed to wear, men are not supposed to have a hat on in any of those situations. And so, like I said, whenever I see that, because I've been in, you know, churches and synagogues and other places or whatever, where it's not my religion, but I still follow their rules in those places, because it's all about respect at that point. So like I said, it's whenever I see that, I'm like, you're dealing with someone with a very low level of intelligence if they're not capable of respecting the fact that you shouldn't wear a hat in church. As you said, really, you shouldn't wear a hat indoors at all. Yeah. Hats off indoors or at the food table. Yep, Dr. Zadin agrees. Dr. Zadin says, stand and cover your heart for the national anthem. If you're military or prior military, salute.
Sadly, I haven't got a clue. Correct.
Take your hat off, too. Stand, remove your hat, and cover your heart. A lot of people just keep their hat in their hand, put it over their heart. That's fine, too. Lexi1397 says, I have not found one yet. Also, what the hell is up with women's jeans being so damn thin and stretchy? Now, mind you, there are still companies like, a lot of your more outdoor type brands like your classic Wranglers or stuff like that that make women's jeans, where you'll still find thick regular blue jeans, but most of the jean companies that make jeans for women have moved on to them as a fashion statement, not as a work piece. So if you're looking for them, unfortunately, and I know women don't like hearing this advice because it sounds condescending or whatever, but if you want jeans to be really good work pants, you need to understand that they are not going to make your butt look nice. They're going to be saggy butt, thick material. They might bunch off behind your knees, straight leg cut. You know, they're not going to be sexy. But if you need them for work, the durability is what's more important. Got to get, like I do, I buy jeans that have gussets everywhere. They got a gusseted crotch. All the pockets have gussets on the corners, so they're not going to tear. They're made of a nice thick denim. That's the way I buy my jeans. Dr. Zadin says, being barefoot is disgusting. I'll walk around barefoot, like, in my yard sometimes if I'm outside with my kids or whatever. And I do it in my house. I mean, like, when it's winter, I wear socks just because it's cold. But, like, I have no problem with being barefoot. But it's definitely not something that I like doing in public. So, like, even in my house, if I've got people over, I'll typically put on at least socks. Sometimes I'll put on shoes or slippers or something like that. You know, something to make it so I'm not barefoot when I'm around people who are not family. So, you know, it's probably all cultural for that sort of stuff. It's another thing, shoes in the house. So, I find, now this is just personally, you know, something that I personally find to be this way. As a person, if I walk into someone's house and they are a no shoes in the house person, out of respect for it being their house and them being in charge, I will either stay outside or I will take my shoes off. You know, I'm not going to be like, no, I'm going to wear shoes in your house and there's nothing you can do about it. It's their house. They're in charge. But I also find it incredibly rude to have someone, you know, invite someone into your house and then tell them they need to remove their shoes. I find that to be excessively rude. So I will take my shoes off in your house if I'm going to stay there, if that's what you want. But I will never demand that people coming into my house take off their shoes, no matter what. You know, that's just me, but I find it, like I said, it's always been one of the things that I find super rude is you walk into someone's house and the first thing they say is, take your shoes off! You know, I'm like, ooh, take it easy there. You know, someone walks into my house and I'm like, take your shirt off now! You know, stuff like that. You know, like I said, because it's not a thing about respect. Typically, the not wearing shoes in the house is something about, cleanliness, you know? People are like, well, I just swept the floors, so I don't have to sweep them again. Problem with that being, you're going to have to sweep them again. Floors need to be swept multiple times a day if you want them to be clean. Forcing people to take their shoes off isn't going to make that any easier. But you have people who they've got back problems, so it's hard for them to put their shoes on and off. Or maybe they wear work boots, so they can't just slip them on and off. It's a whole ordeal or something like that. If I invite someone into my house, first thing I do is offer them refreshments, and I try to make them comfortable while they're there. Otherwise, I'm not going to invite them into my house. Because if I'm not going to extend hospitality, then you know, inviting them into the house is the wrong thing to do. Hypermapping says, Dr. Zada, not to mention the fetishist and creeps drooling. That's true. Lexi says, I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on jeans. Yeah, that's fair. Neither do I. Renixu says, I find it really hard to find good fitting jeans without having them tailored. I have big legs. Should have all your clothes tailored anyway, but a good tailor is so hard to find in the rurals. Yeah, no, unless you're by a large urban area, it can be tough to find an actual good tailor. And most tailors, even in your more urban areas, won't tailor things like jeans or regular shirts. They're specifically like dress clothes tailors. And the reason for that being, most of your like a suit jacket or stuff like that is it's made to be tailored. So they'll have seams that can be opened up with enough cloth to, you know, take them out. It's much easier to take clothing in than out, especially for your more casual stuff like jeans. Because you don't need to have the extra material there. But yeah, I agree. It can be tough to find a good tailor. Also expensive if you don't have a bunch of money. Necris says, good to see you playing some Witcher. This game is a dope adventure. I have yet to experience the next-gen version. Have fun on the journey. I love The Witcher 3. So, Necris, I agree. Fantastic game. I love it, and I always recommend it to everybody. So, people that I know that haven't played it, it's not because I haven't told them to, it's because they've chosen not to. Estonian Gamer says, in Estonia, you just do not go inside with shoes. Like I said, it's cultural. You'll see that over all sorts of cultures. They will have, like, set rules where it is just unthinkable, almost, to enter a house while wearing shoes. How do you block again? Is it, I think it's L1? I don't know. No, yeah, it's L2. Or not L2, but left trigger. But like I said, in America, it's not a set thing. You'll have a lot of areas or different ethnicities or whatever. I don't even know if that's the right word, because most of them are white anyway. But where it's, you know, super common in that culture to just expect people to take their shoes off in the house. But not everywhere, you know? And like I said, for someone where it's not, it's pretty insulting to be like that, to be the first demand is to remove a piece of your clothing that you absolutely, it's essential. And like people have said, a lot of people don't like having their feet exposed around other people, even with socks on. So you're not considering that when you demand that people take their shoes off when they enter your house. Bullet says, I can't go barefooted. It's too much glass and nails in my yard. That's fair. That's the same reason. So like in my yard, at my house, the yard's clean. I don't have glass, nails, broken anything there. But over on our farm, where we've got scrap metal and junk, and there's a burnt down shop that hasn't been cleaned up, and so like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend going barefoot there. Lexi says, yeah, but they don't have my size. I have one pair of thicker jeans, but I hate them because they're too short on my legs, but the butt part is so long. I'm not an Oompa Loompa. That's fair.
mean he
Our
wasn't.
next news says, leave your dirty, stinky boots on the front porch unless it's a blizzard out, in which case, why are you at my house? So right next Zeus, you're a demanding that people take their boots off in your house type of person? My problem with that is, even if the boots are dirty and stinky, there's a good chance that the feet are going to stink really bad. And so if they take off the boots, then they're, you know, you're going to have to deal with that smell. No, like I said, I go both ways on it. It's the same way that I say about, like, relationships. You should never get into a relationship expecting to change the other person. That being said, if you are entering a relationship, you should be willing to change yourself if what you are doing is a bad thing that is, you know, that needs to be changed. It's the same, you know, so that's the approach I tell. I'm like, don't go in to a relationship or whatever with the, like, okay, yeah, but I'll change that about that person. If you do that, you're going to fail. That being said, if you're entering a relationship and you need to change, you should be open to it. It's the same thing as, like I said, if I will go into someone's house and they are a shoes off type person, I will either take the shoes off and respect the authority that they have in their house, or I will just say, I'll just stay outside then, or, well, I can't stay then, I'll have to leave. I will respectfully follow it one way or the other. I won't demand, no, I need to be allowed to wear my shoes in your house. But I won't force someone to take their shoes off in my house. Even if it means we have to sweep the floor and mop it again after just doing it. I just find it rude. Hypermapping says Americans consider Europeans being barefooted at home disgusting, and Europeans consider Americans wearing shoes at home disgusting. Like I said, it depends house to house where I live. You'll have a lot of the people that I know will,
Calm down.
everyone is always wearing shoes in their houses, but then, like I said, right next door you'll have it where they insist that you have to take your shoes off and leave them at the door. You know,
Either of you seen Dandelion?
it goes both ways. Like I said, I will go barefoot in my own home as long as I don't have guests. Or as long as it's such a cold. Hypermapping says, my country is transcontinental between Asia and Europe, and literally no one here wears shoes at home. For me, I usually wear slippers. Well, and that's what I said. That's a lot of people will have that. They'll have house shoes. Or slippers or something like that. So they will specifically have shoes that they only wear inside so they don't get dirty, they're not covered in dog shit, or they're not going to be dragging stuff in from outside, but they're also not barefoot inside. I think that's a good happy medium, but obviously if you're visiting someone else's house, you don't bring your extra pair of house shoes, so you're like, okay, and you switch off, you take your sneakers off and you put your penny loafers on. You know, that's not typically something that I do when I walk into someone else's house. Lexi says, in the winter or when it's raining out, I absolutely hate when people walk in the house and start walking around with their shoes on. Like I said,
Bet sophisticated young ladies like you know a bunch about politics.
It might make people uncomfortable to take them off. It may be difficult for them to take them off. They might not be planning on staying for very long. I understand having requirements for your own house. Maybe you'd say, okay, but only stay over here. I don't want you messing up the floor in there or something like that. But it's just always been extremely rude, in my opinion, to demand that people have to remove their footwear. So an example, winter or rain, you know, where it's dirty. Then tell them they have to clean off the bottom of their shoes or dry their shoes before they can walk around the house. There's a huge step between needing to take them off and to make sure that they're not tracking mud all over the floor. You're like, okay, you can come in, but you got to get the mud off your shoes first. How is that any harder than forcing them to take their shoes off? And then maybe that person will be like, I'd rather just take them off. And you're like, fine, you can take them off and leave them there. Boom. Problem solved. Like I said, it's all about not being caught in your own orbit. That's the way that I like to try to form all of my policies.
I believe she's a poetess.
Estonian Gamer says, in Estonia there are these rooms that are for stowing shoes and jackets that are between the front door and the house. Yeah, we have, so at my house we have what's called, commonly around here, a mud room. It's got a concrete floor, you can put your jackets in a closet or on a bench in there and take your shoes off. It's just to keep all that stuff outside. So, not all houses have one, but mine does.
Been a pleasure, but I've got stuff to take care of.
Hypermapping says, the women actually look like Svana in her 60s. Renexu says, depends on the type of footwear and how dirty they are. Well, that, like I said, and there's a big difference between wearing shit kickers covered all the way up to the knee in cow shit or mud and someone walking in with their dry tennis shoes. You know, yeah, I don't want you walking in with your knee-high boots coated all the way up with an 1.5 inches of mud and shit on them. I don't want you walking into my house with that on. I think that's reasonable. But if someone walks in and they've got dry tennis shoes on, I'm not going to make them take them off. Why on earth would that bother me? Like I said, even if they've got some gravel or dust or dirt on them and it falls off onto the floor, so what? Sweep the floor. You know? Hospitality comes first. Otherwise, don't invite people over to your house. But I was raised in a family and in a culture where hospitality means something. Like I said, I personally find it incomprehensible that you would invite someone into your house and not supply them with food and drink. You know, and it's not just at request, it's the first thing you offer. If someone comes into your house, you know, you've invited them into your house, you'd be like, thirsty, you hungry, you want to eat something? We're about to have dinner, we can set an extra place for you. That is exactly how you have to do it, in my opinion. But we moved, when I was rather young, to a town not too far away, about an hour away from where we previously lived. And it was apparently common for people to invite you over to their house and then not, even upon request, not provide anything to eat or drink. You're like, oh, I'm kind of hungry. You guys got anything to eat? And they're like, you could go home if you want to eat. Like that type of thing. Like, whoa. Have you not heard of hospitality? Is that not a thing around here? That was such a shock for me to realize how poorly mannered most of the people were in that town. And now it wasn't everyone. Every once in a while, you'd walk into somewhere and you didn't want to say anything because you didn't want to be called rude by the people who invite you into their home and then are terrified that you might want to eat or drink something. You know, you don't want to be perceived rude, and they're like, hey, you want something to eat? And you're like, holy crap, a person! Actual humanity! Oh, man.
What's this?
There are two options. Not Russia, but instead the other one. China? It's a little south of Ukraine. Ah, the Ottoman Empire. Mudroom. Hypermappin says, it's kebabbin time. Starts kebabbin all over the floor. Bullet 315 says, my mudroom is just my garage. And that's fair. I feel like that's most people who have, like, any sort of a more modern house that has an attached garage. The garage just functions as your mudroom. You don't need a separate thing if you have a garage. Stoning Gamer says, let's pay respect to the great empire. Lexi1397 says, everybody has to wear boot covers. Yeah, like when you're going into an open house at a house that's for sale, just have a bunch of disposable booties for everyone to put on their shoes. Stoning Gamer says, sorry if that offended you, Mr. Hypermapping. Redixu says, don't forget to offer them a cigarette. First thing I do when I walk into a house is say, haben ein cigarette? And if they don't immediately give me a shitload of cigarettes, I'm like, you guys are terrible and I'm leaving. No, I don't typically offer people a cigarette, but that's because there aren't any cigarettes in my house. I have, however, offered people a pipe. I'd be like, because, like, I've got a bag of corncob pipes with some extra tobacco and, like, filters and all that sort of stuff that I keep over at, now it's at my dad's house, but, you know, when I lived at the farm, it was at my house. But when people would come in, I'd be like, you want a pipe? Like, I'm sitting there smoking, I'd be like, anyone want a pipe? We got, like, 8 more right there, you know? So it would be rare to have me offer you a cigarette, but it would not be rare for me to offer you a pipe. Now, you can't take the pipe with you, but you can smoke it while you're there. And the whole time you're there, that is your pipe.
What can I say? Could be he finally met his match.
Hypermapping says, no, why would it offend me? Instead, it makes me happy since I love history. That a boy, Hypermapping. Way to think with your head. Lexi1397 says, I would rather have people call before coming over. Depends on the person for me. If it's a person I don't particularly like, I'd rather have them call so I can be like, oh no, it doesn't work for me, I'm not at home or whatever. You know, I can avoid them. But if it's anyone I like, they definitely don't need to call before stopping by. They might run into the situation where they show up and I have the flu and I'm throwing up, but that's a risk that you take when you stop by somewhere unannounced. That being said, I don't like stopping by places unannounced. There are very few places I will. So, like, I will stop by my dad's house unannounced. Well, I don't think I've ever called beforehand to, you know, to stop by my dad's house. That would be weird. Or my mom's place or something like that. But other places, even when I'm invited by the person, when they're like, oh, stop on by anytime, or you should come by sometime next month or whatever, I won't. I won't come over unless there's a specific time and date, because I don't want to show up and have no one be there, because A, it could be just a waste of a trip, or just be super awkward if I show up and you're about to sit down to watch a movie or something like that. I don't want to be that guy, you know? So, yeah, like, I don't mind if it's someone that I know well enough and I like, they can stop by unannounced whenever. And I'll be honest, if it's a time where it's really inconvenient for someone to be over, I'll tell them that. I won't be like, next time call. But I'll be like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work this time, but you should come by some other time. You know? It depends, though. If someone that I don't like showed up unannounced, I would probably be like, yeah, I'm busy. That would probably be it. I should probably go sell all this stuff. I'm building up quite the inventory of junk. Meet Zoltan and the Kingfisher. Okay, so we don't need to do that. So let's go sell some of this stuff. Dr. Zodin says, good chatty chat today. Witcher is playing in the background and Nico's having a great conversation. That's what I think it was. Could have been Redneck Zeus, might have been a Stony Gamer, might have been you, Dr. Zodin. Someone said that they forget... Oh no, it might have been Panther, actually. But said they always forget that my live streams are really more like a, what do you call it? A podcast with a video game playing in the background. And I said, that's true. Typically, if we get a good one going, where we've got a nice conversation going on, we're not talking about the game. The game is just kind of there. We're talking about something else. And that's the way that I like to do my streams, which is probably why they'll never get very big or popular. But it's also why I enjoy doing them, because we've got a group of people here that we have a good conversation going. Lexi1397 says, do you have a button nose and 2 eyes made out of coal? Why, am I Frosty the Snowman? I must have missed something to set that line up. That being said, Ryan George, the guy who does the pitch meetings on YouTube, he made a video about the song Frosty the Snowman, and it was really, really funny. Made me laugh a lot. This looks like the main marketplace. Good, we should be able to sell all of our crap here. Haunted house and a cheating merchant. Don't mind if I do. There, that must be the bookseller, right? Right? Yes. It-er.
Geralt of Rivia.
Yeah. Skip. There we go. Alright, what do we have? Estonian Gamer says, I once bought some food for my classmates during my birthday in this dodgy Malacca. Sound like a modest pelican. And this dodgy Malacca. Just packed up and left without saying a word afterwards. I called him a burger scammer, and he cried to the teacher. Nice. Lexi says, I hate when someone shows up randomly and I'm in the shower. That is when I want people to show up, and I want them to come into the bathroom and join me in the shower. I'm like, oh, great. Can you get that spot on my back that I can't reach? That's funny. Estonian Gamer says, and leaving while someone is eating is hugely disrespectful in Estonia. Yeah, I could see that. That makes sense. Redneck Zoo says, I need visits to be thoroughly scheduled out. Like I said, I don't need them to be scheduled out if they're stopping by at my house. But if you want me to come to your house, it needs to be scheduled. Otherwise, I'm just not going to show up. I would rather stay at home, and even if I was super bored, I'd rather just stay at home if I haven't specifically been invited. But there are exceptions to that. I have certain relatives that I'm close enough with that I feel totally comfortable stopping by their house at any time. And also, it helps if they live rather close to you. So even if you show up and no one's there, it's not that inconvenient to turn around and go back. You know. Yeah. Renexu says, I need to have at least a week in advance to get shit ready. Oh, not me. I mean, if I, like, even if... So I have children, obviously, and they could destroy the house, and I'll be like, shit, it is filthy. We need to get this clean. We can very reasonably get the house clean enough for company inside of a couple hours. You know, I never let it get dirty enough before I start to freak out that I can't get it clean enough for company within a couple hours. I think once you get to that point, you have to reevaluate the way that you... Or at least I would have to reevaluate the way that I maintain my house. Because, like I said, I don't like ever being farther off than an hour or two from being company ready. But I hate clutter, so I don't like having anything in my house that I don't specifically need or really, really want. And so I don't build up clutter like a lot of people do. There, now we can sell all of our books and papers and crap. And this merchant is going to be so much better off. While we're here, since he's got 2,000, we'll sell all the rest of our stuff that we can sell to him. Get our money back. From buying all those probably overpriced books, considering I didn't actually even read them. Dang, we can't sell food? Oh, we can sell these rune stones. There we go. That'll have to do. To play cards with them later. You said you had a corncob pipe. Oh, I get it. Yeah, no, I don't only have one corncob pipe. I have a great many of them. That's currently the only pipes I have. I don't... I want to buy a better pipe. I found one on Amazon that I like the way it looks and it's got good reviews, and I plan to buy it eventually, like an actual wooden pipe. But for now, all we have is just a bunch of different styles of corncob pipes. And they work, you know, they work just fine. But they're not quite as classy as I'm looking for. I also found some examples of like Lord of the Rings style pipes, the long wooden ones. And I thought about buying one of those, but I was like, nah. That doesn't quite fit the style of the old ship's captain that I'm going for. Nico, if I wasn't a miner, I'd love to come over to your place and have a pipe. Well, maybe at some point in the future when you're not a miner, you can come to America, because I assume that given the fact that you are Estonian and say that you live in Estonia, I assume that you live in Estonia. So maybe at some point, once you are of age and you are in America, maybe you can come over for a pipe. We'll have a Dare to Game convention where all of the Dare to Game type people can come over, and we'll have drinks and fun outdoor activities, and we can all smoke pipes. I think that would be that'd be DTG Con 2030. I don't know. That sounds like a year that's far enough away that I don't need to actually plan anything.
Show me what you have in stock.
Lexi1397 says, "Everything is on a cob! Get in the ship now!" Excellent reference. The whole damn planet's on a cob! Look at that, we found some maps. Let's get those. Those will be like Witcher gear, I betcha. Let's read them. Here they are. Well, now we've read them. What else do we have? Dr. Zadon says, so I have my own role with my brother. He and I deployed together, and I love him and his family as if they were blood, but I'd go to his place every weekend, drink beer, work on honey-do list next. Renix Zeus says, I need to schedule my trips to the grocery store. That's fair. If you're someone who doesn't keep a whole lot of food or supplies or whatever at your house, but you like to be hospitable, then yeah, you need time to prep beforehand so you actually have the stuff that you want to offer to your guests. I get that mentality. That's typically what we have to do too. So if I'm planning on inviting people over, the main thing isn't cleaning up the house so it's ready, it's going to the store and buying the food and drinks that we need so that, you know, people can enjoy their time. I get that one. Dr. Zadon says, if I dropped by and he was out and about and his wife was the only one there, I'd go straight to the fridge, grab a beer, and take the dog out back and throw the ball and smoke until he got back. I mean, I've never had a non-relative friend that I feel that comfortable being at my house, especially now that I'm married and have children. But if I were in a position like that, that would probably be the better way to go. You know, they get a beer, they go outside, so they're not in the house, in the private family space while I'm not there. You know, that's acceptable. I'd say that's probably a good relationship boundary there. I think it's bad when you get into any situation where you've got a married couple and then whether it's a male or a female hanging out with the other one way too much, especially in the house when the other person isn't there. Even if you don't do anything inappropriate, just kind of being in that situation, it would be what Catholics would call the near occasion of sin. So you're supposed to avoid doing the bad thing, but you're also supposed to avoid putting yourself in a position where you might do a bad thing. So yeah, I would say that what you described there, that's probably the best way to go. If you're going to be there waiting for him or whatever, it's best to go out back and play with the dog until he gets there or whatever. Smoke your cigar or your pipe or whatever. Drink an entire 750 milliliter bottle of scotch, whatever the case may be. Stony Gamer says, PO707, it's going to be 10-11 at 3:03. Sonora way, no additional 32s needed. That sounds like cop talk. Dr. Zadon says, no matter the weather, just showing respect to him and his home. Exactly. That's exactly what you're doing, though. If you're actually friends with someone, you have to respect you have to respect them, you have to respect their family if they have one, you have to respect their property, you know. And so, yeah, that's the way to do it.
Welcome.
Dr. Zadin says, I'm 100% down to do a meet and greet. Like I said, that would be fun, doing like a
What have you got there?
time where all of us that have somewhat built these parasocial relationships via the online interweb type life could meet up somewhere. I know exactly where my wife would like to do it. Actually, I have now forgotten. It's either Montana or Wyoming. She wanted us to do a outdoor Wisconsin trip, so that's one of our other channels. We have a group of friends and family members that like will hang out together and will like airsoft and stuff like that. And my wife wanted to organize this big fun trip where all of us go over to, I think it was Wyoming. And so if I was going to do some sort of a big meet and greet, I don't know that I'd want to do it where I live, because that's, you know, kind of takes away the personality or like puts too much of my personal stuff out there. But like a big outdoor type of group meet and greet activity type thing somewhere else, that could be a lot of fun. Estonian Gamer says, if I wasn't a miner, I'd be too. Isn't Bullet also a miner? I always forget that Bullet's a miner. He doesn't bring it up as much as Estonian Gamer does. Estonian Gamer, you are good at self-protection. You bring it up often enough that no one would ever be able to have plausible deniability and say that they forgot you were a miner. Bullet doesn't, and he blends in too well. And back when we used to play Red Dead, his voice was low enough that he never sounded like a miner. So he didn't have the plausible deniability. Oh, beans. Lexi1397 says, I also don't like when I accidentally leave the door unlocked and people just walk into my house without knocking while I'm trying to do other things. I usually leave my door locked. I was explaining to some relatives the other day that my door at my house is pretty much always locked. No one else in my family locks their doors, like, that live around us in the area. Typically, their house is never empty, because that's some, you know, even if they're gone, some of their kids are there, or something like that. So, like, the house just isn't empty, so it would be tough anyway. Plus, everyone in the area knows who we are, and robbing one of our houses would be considered what most people would say is a really stupid decision. A, because you're probably not going to find anything that valuable in there, and B, you're probably going to die for looking. And, so, not a big robbing risk. But I do keep my door locked. It's just... For me, it's a reflex. I got so used to constantly locking my door for my vehicle and my house when I lived in and near the bigger city where I used to live, and I just still do it now. There's also arguments to be made from an insurance and or legal point of view. I know that there have been cases where if like someone left their doors unlocked and their whole house gets robbed, and then their insurance company finds out that they never locked their doors and they won't cover it, you know? Which I think is bullshit, but why risk it, you know? Dr. Zadin says, you missed the first message of that. Oh, did I? Stony Gamer says, okay, enough loitering. I have people to find and laws to break. Meet and greet. Oh, meat. Like M-E-A-T? Is that sex, or are we just going to barbecue up some nice cuts of pork, beef, and chicken? I was just talking to my youngest daughter today because it was, like I said, it was so cold outside. I was talking to her. I was like, looking forward to warm weather? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, where we got grass on the ground and you can go outside and play. We can have bonfires at night, grill out during the day and invite everyone over. And she was like getting so excited. Then like 2 hours later, she ran up to me and she's like, I'm so excited for summer. And I was like, I don't want to get you too excited. We've got 3 months of winter left. Dr. Zadin says, South Dakota Rapid City is only 25 miles from my place. I was thinking it would be fun to go to Deadwood. You know? That'd be a cool place to go do some shit. Because A, there's all sorts of touristy crap, and it's a, you know, Wild West type thing. That'd be pretty fun. Plus, I mean, obviously I live in Wisconsin, so it's a several-hour drive to South Dakota, but it's an easy drive. Because I can not go through any major cities. I mean, I kind of go around the Twin Cities. But straight shot from here to the Dakotas. So I can drive like 80 miles an hour the whole way. So, that's not hard. Lexi says he is 16 to 17, I think. Bullet says, yes, I'm a minor till September. Yeah, he's almost 18. So no sexual comments or anything, otherwise I'll have to ban any of you that are trying to groom Bullet. But he is almost an adult. And when that time comes, I welcome him to get himself a nice scrimshaw pipe and try some tobacco. Because like Michael Knowles says, if your body is a church, then you need incense. And I like cigars just fine, but I think pipes are the more economic and classy way to go. Dr. Zedden says, doors are always locked no matter what. Like I said, it's so hard-coded into me, and it's not like it's that big of an inconvenience. A lot of my family will act like locking your doors is a ridiculous inconvenience. It's not really. You know, it's one thing if I've got, like, people over and there's people constantly going in and out of my house. Yeah, I'm not going to lock the door then. But just on a daily basis, when I leave the house, the door's locked. Period. You know, if I'm in the house, the door's locked. You know, if you want to get a hold of me, you can call me or knock on the door, and I'll come and see who it is, and maybe I'll open it. Dr. Zowden says, 2A, baby. Renexu says, keep the door locked at night. See? Like I said, we're pretty like-minded here. I'm a person to defend myself no matter what the situation is. And if you get into my house, that doesn't mean you're going to have an advantage over me. But the door will be locked at the beginning. Well, it says, one way to defend against robbers is a Roomba with a claymore on top. I've seen that. I've seen that meme online. I don't know that I'd feel super comfortable with a robot with a claymore on it running around my house, but it's an interesting concept. Hypermapping says meat and Greek. I love Greek food. Nothing like eating a good, well-seasoned lamb. Lexi1397 says, I just want it to be in control when people come over. LOL, I don't always want to let people in. That's fair. That's the point of a house, after all, is to have control over the inside and outside. The inside space is supposed to be something that you control. No, you sacrifice some of that when you get married, because you're not the person in control. You share control with the person you're married to. In fact, in a traditional marriage, especially any sort of a traditional Christian marriage, the man is the head of the household. So that definitely extends to control of who enters the house. So in that regard, as is the case with several regards, but especially in that one, if you're living in any sort of a traditional marriage, the man does have the final say in who does and doesn't enter the house. And that does not default to the woman. That may be an unpopular belief, but it is the traditional belief. Security is definitely something that falls under the male purview in a marriage. And the base level of security is deciding who does and doesn't enter a house and when they do or do not enter the house.
Splendid. Very funny.
Dr. Zodin says, when I get my own house, I want a weapon within arm's reach at all times. Like how I'm going to be shot while taking a shit or out shooting back. That's the only thing. The tricky one is a bathroom gun. Because bathrooms don't typically... They're not great for keeping guns because there's too much moisture, and so you always have to worry about rust and stuff like that. Plus, they're not typically that big, and a lot of times you don't have great hiding spots or whatever. So that's the one spot in a house that's tricky to have a gun, is in a bathroom. Other than that, it's relatively easy. You only start running into problems when you have kids, because it's important to remember that when you have guns in the house, they have to take into account children. Otherwise, you know, terrible, terrible things can happen. Now, the best way around that is at a very young age, once the children are capable of, you know, meaningful thought, is to teach them gun safety. A kid is much less likely to shoot themselves or another person with a gun they find if they have been trained how to safely handle guns. You know, but past that, you know, at a younger age or even at that level, because, you know, children are not capable of the best thought processes, it's better to keep it either way, where they cannot find it or they physically cannot reach it. But prior to that, like, if you're single or you're just, there's only adults in the house and none of them are a suicide risk, it's pretty easy to keep guns all over the place. Dr. Zudden says, I'm only 10 miles out of Deadwood. See? Pretty close. I think it'd be cool to visit Deadwood. If we do a meet and greet, that's definitely high on the list of where I might decide to have it, is maybe somewhere over by Deadwood.
Biggest prick in Novigrad.
Bullet says it's called a Boomba. Nice. Lexi1397 says smoking jackets. See, that's the thing. I don't have a smoking jacket, but I would like one. I would like one of the classic, like, red ones. So, now that might look silly with a pipe, because I normally associate a smoking jacket with a cigar, but I feel like Sherlock Holmes always smoked a pipe, and he wore a smoking jacket, so it's certainly not out of place. Definitely not. Estonian Gaming says PO707 going 10-8.
Rushing to Dandelion's rescue.
And then says Nico 10-9.
Wherever he is.
Dr. Zedden says, inside the tank of the toilet in a plastic sealed bag. Yes, nothing says situational preparedness like having to open the back of your toilet, pull out a plastic bag, unzip it, and get the gun out. I can't think of how many times I've been in a fight or flight situation, and I've been like, here, this is where I'm going to hide my gun. I've got it weighted down in the back of my toilet tank, sealed in a plastic bag. I have it coated in cosmoline and shrink wrapped around that too. So that gun is perfectly safe. No moisture is going to affect it. Unfortunately, I was stabbed 900 times before I was able to get the gun out. I like all of the like secret hideaway flaps that you'll see people will install in their walls, and then like you push on it and it drops a shotgun down. Those are the best ones. A, because it sets you up for a sweet scene like in an action movie where you're about to be robbed and then you just push against the wall, it drops a 12 gauge, and you blow them back out the door. But I like being ready for anything. That's the last resort gun. First resort gun is your taint gun. You just got it strapped up in the taint all the time. Glandia versus Svandia.
The Kingfisher preened, then fell in the
Flandian from Ohio. Dr. Zedden says, lots of bars and gambling in Deadwood, but really cool places to see and visit. That's what I figured. I looked it up briefly online, and it looked like enough stuff to interest me. I love, like, I love history, but most of my interest is medieval European history. I like American history as far as there's a lot of interesting people in American history, and there are certain periods that hold my attention. So, like, if you've got colonial or even pre-colonial America, I find to be pretty interesting, and then the American West is an interesting period. Outside of that, American history doesn't do it for me. So anytime where you get a spot like Tombstone or Deadwood or something like that, where you've got enough of that Western history to interest me, those are spots I like visiting. We'll try playing around the Gwent. This is high stakes. I lost that last hand, so I don't have any deck changes. Monster deck, of course. Lexi says, I always wanted to go to whitewater rafting with a big group of friends. I almost went whitewater rafting once, but then it fell through because some of the people involved were not committed enough to the... Ah, damn it. I hate it when I do that. Well, we'll play those ones first. Nothing worse than getting a summon card when you're swapping one out. Well, except for using a spy and getting two of them. That's worse. Definitely not. Estonian Gamer says, okay, PO707 going on patrol, traffic enforcement. Renexu says, what about a meet and greet at the Boot Hill Museum in Dodge City? Then we can all hang out at the casino afterwards. Dr. Zedden says, Seth Bullock and Wild Bill are buried in Deadwood. That's what I'm saying. Deadwood's got a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool claims to fame going on, which is why it's kind of my first resort. But Dodge City wouldn't be bad either. That way I could say, hey, we got to get the hell out of Dodge, you know? And it would be applicable instead of, like, when I usually say it. Lexi says, I've never been to a casino, but I have a feeling I wouldn't like it. I've been to casinos, and I don't like them. But it's mostly just because I don't much care for gambling. Casinos are worth going to if they have a good buffet and cheap beer. Dr. Zedden says, Bullock and Teddy were great friends while he was working on his ranch in North Dakota. That is the rumor. There are some historians that contest that, and they say that they actually didn't know each other that well, but I think there's a lot more evidence that supports that they were at least correspondents. I find Seth Bullock to be an interesting historical character. Suck on that, opponent. Hey, look at that, he passed. Yee-yee! Dang, it's my turn. Oh, we'll play this one first. I was hoping he was going to draw out that spy. I'm going to save that, save this guy until he brings the spy out. Well, we'll go with the Blue Stripes Commando. Like I said, monster decks like to go with heavy on the melee. What else do we have? Bullock and... Oh, I already read that one. Hypermapping says, I don't really care about gambling, extremely base Nico. Like I said, gambling is obviously it's a vice, and I don't have a problem when people do it responsibly. Like, it's hard to say gamble responsibly. But, you know, if you have expendable income that you absolutely do not need to survive, gambling it isn't irresponsible in my opinion. You know, now mind you, you're still possibly losing money that you don't need to lose, so in that regard you might still call it irresponsible. But, you know, like I said, if it's expendable income, you can expend it without being irresponsible, in my opinion. It's when people are, like, gambling the very, very little money they have to survive, and that's when I have a problem with it. I should win. Look at that. Woohoo! And just me personally, I don't much care for it. If I'm going to play a game, especially a card game, I want the game itself to be interesting. I don't want it to be... I find poker to be very, very boring. I play a German card game called Scott. It's extremely fun. It's a great game. It takes a lot of strategy, and it never gets boring. You take a game like poker, it's extremely boring. The only way you can pay attention to it is by having a shitload of money on the line, which makes it, in my opinion, a boring game. Renixu says, and when you eventually get bored of all of us, you can take the lady on a tour of the Boot Hill Whiskey Distillery. I'm sure my wife would love that. Every time we go on vacation, like basically anywhere, she always looks for the nearest brewery or distillery or something like that and always wants to go to see them. She's got an interest in them. I think it's because she's an alcoholic. I'm just kidding. Well, maybe.
Anybody there?
Dr. Zevin says, the term was coined by Wyatt Earp while he was a thumper in Dodge City, hitting drunks over the head with his gun barrel. You mean the get the hell out of Dodge? I knew it was a Wyatt Earp thing. Bullet says, always remember, napalm sticks to kids. It does stick to kids. I don't know why I need to remember that.
The bathhouse is closed.
Nixu says, take $200 and plan to lose it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you insist that you have to go gambling, like, I'm gonna go gambling and that's the thing I want to do, then yeah, like you said, choose how much money you're gonna lose and only lose that much. You know? The best way to, especially if you're someone who doesn't have great self-control, only take that much. You know? Because if you bring more, or you bring your ATM card or whatever, you're just gonna keep burning it. So yeah, like you said, bring $200 and plan to lose it. If you double it, then quit while you're ahead, you know? But if you lose it, then quit while you're behind. Either way, quit. Because the only person that wins in a casino is the house. Everyone knows this, and yet still everybody goes to the casino. Or not everybody, but a lot of people still go to the casino. I knew a guy who just died recently. He used to, every single month, he'd get a social security check. First thing he did was drive to the casino and lose it. And then he'd, you know, have no money for the rest of the month. And it didn't matter how many times he told this guy, hey, you're being an idiot. You're being very stupid. You're making your life extremely difficult off of some weird off chance that you might win slightly more money than you brought in. You know, because you're never going to walk out of a casino being a millionaire. It's not like winning the lottery. You know, best case scenario, maybe you make 10 times as much money. Maybe you go in with 200 and you leave with 20,000 or something like that. That would be a, you know, remarkable success story for the average casino experience, but maybe you do it. But the vast majority of people are not going to do that, you know? So, yeah, I've never much cared for that. Renixu says, my grandma used to go gambling every month. That's what I'm saying. I know quite a few elderly people that they'll take their retirement money and they'll gamble it away every single month. You know? And I mean, I guess I get it if you're in your 80s or something like that and you're like, I'm probably going to die sometime soon. So at least you have that little endorphin rush from winning something on the penny slots or whatever. But, no, I've never been a fan of gambling, and most of the people... Ooh, excuse me. Throat's getting a little dry from all the talking. Most of the people that I personally know that habitually gamble, it's a much worse thing for their life than it would be otherwise.
Think I'll let your host introduce me.
He's a witcher.
Dr. Zodin says it sticks to their bellies and it sticks to their ribs. Stoning Gamer says I'm back. My grandma and I buy lotto tickets.
Allegedly.
Yeah, not much of a gambler, including the lottery. You know, again, that's another thing that's public knowledge. Everybody has heard the expression, the lottery is a tax on stupid people. Because if you take the Powerball, for example, the odds of winning the jackpot are, what, 1 in 292 million? You know, those are terrible odds. Would you ever do, like...
Someone just snuck inside the bathhouse.
I'm trying to think of something comparable to it, but, like, you would never take those odds on anything else. Now, mind you, yes, your loss in the Powerball is very low, you know. If a Powerball ticket is $2... Oh, I totally forgot there's a lot of nudity in this part. Oh, boy. Ah! Yeah, I forgot about all the nudity in this part, and was, probably dangerously close to getting a community strike for this stream. I like it's like, who could be attacking us? Well, it's a group of people all named Horson's henchmen. Wonder what they might be doing. Nip slip. I tried to warn you, Nico. Yes, well, I wasn't paying attention. You have to warn me in a way that's going to get me to pay attention. Dr. Zaden says, there was one kid I was at AIT with at Fort Sill who won $5 million off blind poker. The odds were astronomical, but he pulled it off and left the army a week later. Well, yeah, if you're in the army, especially still early on at the army, like you're at AIT, so you're not even done with training, and you win $5 million, you're probably going to find a way to get out of the army.
Let's give him a...
Bloop, 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 bloop.
I'm looking...
In? What do you...
It's...
Still.
Skip, 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 skip.
Any...
Skip, 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 skip.
Leave it. Sure.
There we go, now we're clothed. They forced him out? Ooh, they forced him out. Why? Did he do something bad?
If you're any
The next dude says, if you play the lotto, you gotta play the smaller lottos that are less than 500k. I mean, I just don't believe in playing any of them. Now, that's not to say I've never bought a lottery ticket. Back when I first turned 18, every once in a while I'd buy a couple scratchers. And usually, if you buy the $1 scratchers, you buy like $10 worth of them, you usually can get back $10 worth of prizes from them, you know? So it wasn't the biggest thing in the world. But like, I have throughout my life occasionally bought a lottery ticket. So like, if the Powerball gets up over $2 billion, yeah, I'm gonna buy a ticket for it, you know? Because like I said, you're risking $2, and yes, you have a ridiculously, infinitesimally small chance of winning the jackpot. But for $2, even a 1 in $2 billion, even a 1 in 292 million chance of winning it is worth $2 in my opinion. That being said, that's how the lottery makes its money. The only people that get rich from the lottery, other than the one jackpot winner out of, you know, 500 million people that bought the ticket, are the owners of the lottery. So if you want to win the lottery, start your own lottery. Dr. Zaden says, nope, what order can you give a guy with 5 million in the bank? So cut grass, F you, Sarge. That's funny. I guess that's true. You don't typically want rich people in the military. Most civilizations throughout history of the entire world have always targeted poor people because they have the most control over them. But that's the same as like any job, really. I worked in a corporate setting for the last couple jobs I had, and once they find out that you're not a wage slave, so like you have money in your bank account and you could tell them to go pound sand whenever you want, because if they try to abuse you in any way, you could be like, fuck you, I quit. Have fun filling my job, I'm out of here, you know. They don't like that. So just so you know, if you ever get yourself into a position where you're financially secure and you absolutely could leave a job at any time, you know, like you're at that level, which is where I was at with my last couple jobs, don't let your boss know about it. Not until you are already to the point where you're considering leaving. Because if you do, then they will consider replacing you right then and there. Most employers want you to be so desperate that they can abuse you to a certain degree before you're going to quit. You know, whether that's just excessive overtime or forcing you to come in on your off days or whatever the case may be, or denying your vacation requests. They want that freedom. And once they find out that they don't have that freedom over you, you become a less valuable employee to them. So like I said, if you get into that point, you always keep that secret until you absolutely need it. So like the time that I revealed it, and not my last job, but the job before that, was the hours were getting ridiculous. I was on call all the time because I was in charge of 3 shifts. You know, so the whole day I was kind of on call even when I wasn't at work. And it was a salaried position, so on average you work 10 to 12 hours a day, but they still expect you to come in on the weekend and stuff like that, you know. And so I would, that went on for a long time before I was like, here's the thing, guys. I don't need this job. I could quit now and make no money for the next several years and be perfectly fine. You know? And once I did that, they really stopped pushing on all of the ridiculous stuff. But you could tell that that was then in the back of their minds that, oh, okay, you know, I can't abuse this guy, so then they stopped putting you forward on certain stuff. So the American work system is complicated, but like you said, Dr. Zowden, once they realize that you've got enough money that they can't boss you around, they don't want you. Renexu says, remember McDonald's Monopoly? My folks got really big into that. I do remember that, and I just watched a YouTube video the other day about that, talking about how for a very long time in the Monopoly, because that went on since like the late 80s, you know, that's when it started, and it went all through the 90s and then a good chunk of the 2000s. I think it's still a thing, but I just think they do it differently. But there's a good video on that, how the guy who was in charge of distributing the big tickets that you would actually need to win, it was all rigged. It was rigged from the start where nobody in Canada could win the jackpot, or like any of the big prizes, anything more than like free food. And so like that was a big scandal. And then the other ones, most of the big winning tickets were being sold to like people involved in the mob. You know, like, it was a really interesting video. It was great. Bullet says, McDonald's is a bad fast food place. Bullet, you are 100% correct. McDonald's food is shit. The only thing that's worse than McDonald's is Burger King. Ugh. I don't like, they make the worst fast food that I've ever had. I can barely stomach McDonald's, but Burger King is worse. Renexu says, I got a Marine Corps advert in the mail yesterday. Oh yeah, once you get to a certain age as a male, the military adverts never stop coming.
I know I've been unbearable lately.
Stunning Gamer says, after all, slave labor is efficient labor, and if you can't be a slave, then they don't want you. Well, that's what I'm saying. When you... Most people... Like, you hear the term wage slave and you're like, ew, that sounds bad. But most people are wage slaves. You know, if you live paycheck to paycheck, or if you're in a position where losing your job would be extremely terrible, like it would destroy your livelihood, you might lose your house, blah, 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 you know, you won't be able to support your family, you are a wage slave then. Because, you know, if you upset your employer enough or whatever, or some situation makes it so you can't make it to work for a while or something like that, and it totally destroys your entire life, that is just slavery with extra steps, you know? So that's why becoming independently wealthy enough to, you know, feel safe is the most important thing as far as financial planning goes in the United States.
Figured as much.
But yeah. Like I said, once an employer loses that sense of control, they won't find you to be a valuable employee to them. At least most employers. Some employers aren't bad like that, but a lot of them are. Bullet 315 says, I keep getting ads for the Georgia Department of Corrections. One advice I would have for you as someone who went to college for criminal justice before switching it to a business degree, corrections is not a thing you want to work in. Now, for me, it got to the point where I was certain that law enforcement was not a thing I wanted to work in, which is why I switched majors. But if I was going to work in law enforcement, it would not be corrections. Lexi says, Wendy's is close behind them. Wendy's has some good stuff. That's the difference. Like, almost everything at McDonald's and Burger King is inedible, toxic crap. Whereas some of the stuff at Wendy's is fine. It's not what I would call good food, but it's at least not toxic, inedible crap. What's it? Bullet says Zaxby's has good chicken. Yes, Zaxby's does have good chicken. A couple months back, I did a series of polls on my YouTube channel asking people to vote on what their favorite of like a fast food thing was. And so the first one I did, I think, was like Americanized Mexican food. I think the second one I did was burgers. Third one I think was fried chicken. And I had Zaxby's on there, and nobody seemed to like Zaxby's. In fact, KFC ended up winning that poll, and KFC chicken has been terrible for like 30 years.
Beating your head against the wall won't change that.
Redneck Zoo says, IDK, an occasional double Big Mac is pretty dang good. Also, McDonald's ingredients are actually really high quality because they'd probably get a lot of class action lawsuits if they weren't. Like I said, for me, it's never been a quality thing why I don't like McDonald's. I think their food tastes terrible. Like, I really like a good hamburger. Pretty much anybody that knows me will know that I will go out to a fancy restaurant, and unless I've gone there for a specific type of food, if they've got good, like, craft burgers on their menu, I'm almost certainly going to get the burgers. I am of the opinion that even the best cut of steak is better if you grind it up and make it into a burger. I know a lot of people don't like that, but that's the way I feel about it. But their McDonald's burgers are inedibly gross to me. I've never liked them. Estonian Gamer says, going 10-8 and leaving the stream. See you later, Estonian Gamer. Dr. Zodin says, pink slime. Enough said. It's Soylent Green.
You're not exactly bursting with enthusiasm.
Bullet 315 says, on to the food talk. Hey, we're 2 hours and 53 minutes into the stream. That's almost 3 hours. And for food to just be coming up now, that's pretty good. I am getting pretty hungry. And whenever we get around the 3-hour mark, I always get to the point where I'm like, well, it's getting about time. I gotta get going. A, I'm hungry. B, I got shit to do. You know, once we get into the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock p.m., I start running out of time.
Bloody name of Redania's king?
No, but I am wondering, for instance, how that hole got there.
Oh no.
Let's skip these guys.
Boot.
Got lots.
Bad mushrooms? What's that about?
Pops mold. The spores are highly toxic. One whiff and you're dead. Unless you're a troll, that is.
Bart troll.
Not top.
Skip.
Try to... What?
Lad, try to...
Should look around the sewers.
3 o'clock rock. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rock.
Thanks.
There's an Elvis impersonator who's apparently quite good. He's going to be doing a thing in one of the nearby cities to where I live for, what is it? Valentine's Day. It's coming up soon here. I looked at it, I was like, hey, look, it'd be like going to Vegas. One of the things I always get a kick out of is, so like...
Hey, Bart, got him.
I didn't want to talk to this guy.
One.
Anyway, you ever notice with Elvis impersonators that they don't impersonate Elvis when he was young and attractive? They usually impersonate Elvis when he was old and fat and wears like the white spangled Evel Knievel looking suit. You ever notice that? They're not young Elvis impersonators. They're always old fat Elvis impersonators. Isn't that weird? I don't know. Like I said, I just
Edges curled
I saw the advertisement for this like I said Elvis impersonator, and he's not just like one of those like officiant, you know, an Elvis impersonator that just talks like Elvis. This one is one who performs like he does a bunch of songs, and apparently he's quite good. So I was looking at it, I was like, I don't know that I would like to go see that, but I would be interested in sending one of my relatives or friends that is a fan of Elvis to go see it. Dr. Zoden says Taco Bell is 100% better than McDonald's and Burger King, and that's saying something. I agree, but I think the big thing with that is they all use what I would consider to be pretty nasty, cheapish type ingredients, but it's easy to use cheap ingredients and still make a good taco than it is to use cheap ingredients and make a good burger. I need Pop's mold antidote, don't I? Or did he already give it to me? Is it in my wheel? Well, I ate something. That's not what I wanted to do. How the heck do I... It's probably on this side. These are all bombs. Those are all bombs. Where the heck is the... Because I feel like he just gives it to you. Redneck Zoo says, we finally got a food talk channel on Discord after much complaining. Well, yeah, you said a food or a politics, religion, and food channel. I was like, sure, I could do that. And I popped them all together, and then apparently that wasn't good enough, so now we just have a food one. I'm just going to share all my John Wayne recipes on there. Where the heck is the pot mold thingy? Lexi said, I don't think Elvis was attractive. No, but I mean, like, when he was young, he was, well, I mean, undeniably attractive just by modern standards. I feel like the vast majority of the populace would disagree with you there. Like I said, when he was young. It's when he gets old and fat that, like, most of the people, that's what you picture. I have to make it, I bet. Enhanced. Well, I can make that. Look at all these potions I could make this whole time and I didn't make. Look, I even have bombs I can make. Enhanced grape shot? Hells yeah. Superior grape shot? We're all the way up to superior, boys and girl. I assume Lexi 1397 is the only girl still in here. Well, unless Green Smirnoff's still here. I'm just confused as to the Pops mold thing. I thought he gave it to us, but I can't find it in my inventory. So, not sure what to do. Might as well get rid of all these stars. I'm a little OCD when it comes to, like, having unread notifications in video games. It really bothers the crap out of me. Look at all those new things we got. Am I just being slow? Why am I not seeing this Pops mold thing? Subway doesn't make me hate myself. I don't like Subway. Never have. Like, I can, if I go there, I can make a sandwich that I like well enough. You know, I won't leave and be like, that was gross. Their food is fine. But I've never been a fan of it. Like, I could, right now, I'm hungry enough that I could go down to Subway and I could be perfectly happy with a sandwich. If, like I said, I doctored it up in all the ways I like it. But typically, so, like, I wouldn't need to. That's the thing. I can eat at a Subway if I need to. If it's the only thing to eat, I can make a sub and be happy with it. But in the town I live in, there's so many other options that are just mostly better, you know?
Getting harder to breathe.
It's Pops mold! Look at that, we did it. There we go. Took me a long time to find that stupid thing. I finally spotted it down below. I was like, ah, there it is.
Couldn't push much through that. Counters.
But the thing with Taco Bell is there is almost always a better and cheaper taco place in town. That's fair. If you've got... So, like, in my hometown here, we've got an actual Mexican restaurant that is actually really good. And so if I'm hankering for Mexican food... Now, back in the day, especially, like, high school and everything, I used to be all about that Taco Bell lifestyle. And if we had a good Taco Bell here, I still probably would, because I still like a lot of the food at Taco Bell. It's just that the Taco Bell in my hometown is terrible. You know, so if I'm in the big town that I used to live by, or the next one over that still have good Taco Bells, I still like eating at Taco Bell. But the one here in my town is not a good one, so I hate eating there. They can't get an order right. Like, it is not possible for them to get the order right. They will forget things, or they'll make things wrong, or whatever the case may be, but they always get it wrong. Which is annoying, because how hard is it to just put the right food in and make it correctly? But on top of that, they're just really bad at proportioning, and so you'll have, like, they won't put enough meat and rice or whatever else is supposed to be in there, and they'll put way too much Chipotle cheese or something like that, so that it's just an asshole-burning burrito, you know, made to order, you know, which I don't personally care for that much. Like, their habanero cheese sauce, it's good, it tastes good, in moderation. If it's all that your burrito is made up of, it's like a tortilla full of habanero cheese, that's too spicy, you know? Doesn't feel good to eat that. What do we have? Make gospel Elvis impersonators great again? I agree. Elvis had some really good gospel songs. It's funny, like I said, I'm in a choir. We sing at our church usually a couple times a month, sometimes only once a month. But one of the songs we'll sing is, what's the song? It's a gospel song that Elvis used to sing. It's Precious Lord, Take My Hand. It's one of my favorite songs to sing. And it's a little out of place in the Catholic Church because we don't do a lot of gospel. But that one works just because it, you know, it's got a liturgically sound message and sounds awesome when you sing it right. And I get a kick out of it every time we sing that because I'm like, hey, you know that Elvis used to sing this song? That's fun. Whoa, I just saw Nip Slip somewhere on there. Elvis's daughter died recently. Yes, she did. Karina Smirnov says, I fell asleep for a while, but I'm here. Dr. Zadin says, the stream has been 10 out of 10. Witches burned, check. Religion talk, check. Political discussions, check. Food talk, check. And a quick nip slip? Who could ask for more? That's true. Renexu says, Jimmy John's is better than Jersey Mike's, and that's better than Subway. Out of all of the, like, headline-y type sub places, I think Firehouse Subs actually makes the best sandwiches. But I agree with you. I would say the big thing about all of those subs places that you listed is at Subway, you know, make it your own way. So instead of it being a well-designed sandwich with, you know, complementary flavor palettes, you just put all the same crap that you like on it. And so most people, what that means is they'll put a bunch of lettuce on it and they'll coat it in like way too much ranch or mayonnaise or something like that. And so they totally just destroy the flavor of the sandwich. And, you know, you're not actually getting any of those complementary meat flavors, meat and cheeses that you're supposed to. And so that's why I find that place like Jimmy John's or Quiznos or Jersey Mike's or Cousins or, like I said, Firehouse Subs, those places, they actually design a sandwich that has a specific flavor going for it. And so they almost always come up with a much better sandwich, in my opinion. Lexi says, I could ask for some ASMR pickle crunch. No, I don't think so. I think the stream's been going on long enough that, and I'm getting hungry enough that once we finish this mission, I'm probably just going to quit and then go eat some food elsewhere. Renixu says, beef tongue street tacos are fire. I like street tacos well enough. I don't know that I've ever specifically had beef tongue street tacos, but I like street tacos well enough. I wouldn't say they're my favorite, but I do enjoy them. I enjoy a good, well-made taco, though. The Mexican restaurant here in my town has something called the Mexico Lindo. It's a bunch of Spanish rice with carne asada, fajita chicken, and shrimp on it. And then on top of that, you've got a bunch of peppers, onions, tomatoes, and white queso. And so it is really good, and I've tried a whole bunch of stuff on their menu, and it's usually good. But that is my favorite thing they serve. It is so good. Oh, making me hungry just thinking about it. Oh, it's so good. Dr. Zidon says, love Jersey Mike's, but Mr. Good Sense is bar none my favorite subject. I've never even heard of that one. I'll have to look for it. Where's Crazy D with the pickles up the mail? Bullet 315 says, I heard a story someone going to Jimmy John's, he ordered a sandwich with no tomato, and he said the clerk looked him dead in the eyes and said, we are too busy for custom orders. Take the tomato off? No. Undoable. Leave. I thought Jimmy John's was supposed to be crazy fast. Shouldn't they be able to manage taking, not putting an ingredient on? Dr. Zadin says, do you do contemporary music at your church, Nico, or hymns? So, last year we had a meeting with with the music director for the whole parish cluster, and we had specific instructions from our priest to steer away from your more contemporary songs and to focus more on hymns and traditional music. So every once in a while you'll still hear some more of your contemporary songs, but the vast majority of the music going on in our parish cluster here is more traditional hymns. And like I said, we'll also do some Latin songs and stuff like that, but the vast majority of it is hymns nowadays, which I think is a lot better. Obviously, there are some contemporary songs that have a very liturgically sound message to them, and they're not all hippy-dippy, lovey, you know, raise you up on eagle's wings or, you know, rain down or crap like that, songs that I just hate. There will be actually a liturgically sound message, so some contemporary music still makes its way into what we'll sing, but it feels very traditional, you know. So, but most of it is hymns now. So that's good. That's a good improvement. Hypermapping says, Mick, dog food sucks. Hypermapping, you know what's up. Crazy D is very confused right now. I haven't seen Crazy D in today's stream. I just assume he's not here. Renix Zeus says, I think I remember eating Mr. Good Sense when I was younger, but I don't remember how good it was exactly. I've never even heard of that. That must be something from down south or whatever, because I don't think I've ever seen that here in Wisconsin. My eye-opening experience to the fact that Subway is like the worst sub company you can go to is when my dad was in the hospital for something or another, and me and my friend were visiting him, and I think it might have been like he needed something touched up on one of his joint surgeries because he has fake knees. I think that's why. So he was in there for a long time. We were there visiting, and we could see from the window that there was a gas station and a Cousin Subs. It looked like it was just down the hill. And it ended up being like a 45-minute walk, but we ended up going to Cousin Subs, and I ordered a sub sandwich that sounded good on their menu there, and it was way better than anything I've ever had at Subway. And that was the eye-opening experience I had, that getting a curated, chef-designed sub sandwich is way better than building your own. Even if the one you build is quite good and it's got all your favorite ingredients in it, getting one that's specifically designed for a particular flavor palette is almost always going to be a better experience. And ever since then, I've kept my eye open. And out of all the places I've tried, I like the Firehouse subs the best. But Jersey Mike's and Cousins and Quiznos and Jimmy John's, they all make pretty good sandwiches as long as you get a good one. Dr. Zowden says, contemporary just makes my skin crawl while at church. Yeah, I know. I can't stand it either. For me, a lot of it comes down to instruments. And I've probably said this before on stream. I don't think you should ever have any instruments other than... So obviously the piano and the organ are your, those are your traditional, typical instruments. If you've got, under the right circumstances and you're not trying to turn it into an alternative rock concert, I've got no problem with a 6 or a 12 string acoustic guitar if it's being used tastefully. I am totally against most percussion instruments being used in church music. I'm against electric guitars. Under extremely specific circumstances, I can see the use of like a trumpet or a French horn or something like that in like, some traditional music, especially Christmas music. But I also really do not like contemporary music in church. Can't stand it.
I've not heard.
Not surprising. The Honourable Margaret.
Lexi says he was lurking earlier. Oh, good. Hypermapping says, still no Dave. Yeah, Dave Zilla has not been here. Jonas Goldendick says, or he's here lurking in the comments. Jonas Goldendick? What the hell, man? You wait until we're almost done with the stream to finally say something? If you were lurking this whole time, man, that is unacceptable. Dr. Zowden says, Kansas City has Mr. Goodsense, and there was a Ford in NASCAR that had them as a sponsor over a decade ago. I've never been a NASCAR fan, so that wouldn't help me recognize them at all. Our next news says, I hear Potbelly Subs is supposed to be the best. Never heard of them either. Guys, I'm so hungry. You're just making me way more hungry by all this talk of food and restaurants. God, I'm hungry. Alright, we finished up that mission, so I think it's time to... And I think we're at, 3 hours and 10 minutes. That's a long enough stream. I need to go eat something. I am ravenously hungry. Renexu says, my dad played the bass guitar on our church's worship team. Ugh. I can't stand that. Ah, man, that drives me nuts. Like I said, I like the music in church to be very liturgically sound. Honestly, you don't need to go anything newer than, like, Beethoven or even Mozart for really, really good church music, because I think Mozart wrote, like, 18 different masses, If you don't want to go anywhere past Mozart, there's enough music. But, yeah, once you get to, like, a worship team or, like, a band, ugh, I hate that. Dr. Zodden says, trumpet and horns are only for Christmas and Easter. Yeah,
like a beggar's hovel.
That's typically been my experience.
Dandelion made some interesting friends.
What did he say? Jonas Goldendick says, I was just too busy watching the stream through your window and forgot to comment. If you were watching the stream through my window, that would either mean you were flying, hanging onto the shelf, or standing on a ladder, because I am streaming from a rather tall second-story building right now. On the second story. Hypermapping says, Jonas' surnames usually identify someone's features. What sort of feature did your grandparents have to get you that surname? Well, I would imagine either a quality or a quantity type thing to get the status of golden. Dr. Zevin says, have a great one, Nico. Thank you, Dr. Zevin. See you later. Jonas Goldendick says, JK, I was driving and had the stream playing in the car. That's fair. I can accept that. That's a reasonable example of when you need to lurk. Renixu says, I prefer a liturgical service. Brandon Klaus says, since we were talking about food, I'm going to brag on my wife. She is Hispanic and she makes the best enchiladas, sauce made from scratch. See, that is one of the best arguments in the world. Like, the criteria for picking a wife, if you're someone who cares about food tasting good, that's something you gotta look at the beginning. My wife is getting better and better at cooking all the time. She has some things that she makes very, very well. And so I can't complain too much there. She makes good food when she wants to. But I've also seen people, like friends that I have, they'll marry, like, I have a friend from high school who married a Chinese woman. And she makes ridiculously good Chinese food, apparently. And I'm always like, I love Chinese food. It's pretty rare to find a white person that can make good Chinese food, though. It's one of those flavor palettes that is apparently lost on the white cook. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in. I am glad that we had a nice long stream, had a good chat. I am now ridiculously hungry, so I think all of us should leave and go get something to eat. Renixu says, I was asked to do the Soundberg at the church because I'm a computer genius. Oh, I get that all the time. I teach catechism, and all of the other teachers that teach catechism are much older than me. And so if they need, like, you know, the AV cables plugged in on a TV, they're like, get Nico to do it. He knows how to use the computers. Anyway, see you guys later. Yeah, Estonian Gamer, you turned in much late. Very, very sad. Dr. Zouden says, I don't like white people food. Way too much ranch and mayo. Yes, if your flavor palette is ranch and mayo, you're doing it wrong. For example, I can already smell it. I have a corned beef brisket cooking downstairs in the slow cooker. And so that is an example of white people food that can be done very well. But if your flavor palette is ranch or mayo, that is the wrong kind of white people cooking. Anyway, enough ranting and raving. See you guys later. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the stream. I definitely had a lot of fun. Smoke a pipe and have a good day.